Civilian Hokage, unstoppable from the start with 8 gates. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author, we're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 201, Teaching of the 8-Gate Dungeon, 1 point of spiritual light. Knowing there was nowhere with stronger winds ahead, Suzumiya Musashi decided against going any further. There's no stronger natural wind I can sense. What should I do now? Suzumiya Musashi murmured to himself. Could it be that the opportunity for the new technique to succeed hasn't arrived yet? After the training and fighting a moment ago, his chakra was considerably depleted. He didn't stay there long and returned to his residence. 30. I had just returned to my residence when, before entering, I heard Shianshin's voice, accompanied by the sound of the Rasengan renewing. 30. Upon entering, I saw Shianshin concentrating all his strength to slam the Rasengan into the blue stone floor. Shianshin, what's wrong? Haven't you completed the objective yet? Suzumiya Musashi asked. Not yet, Shianshin was a little disgruntled. I can probably finish 25 now, but master, if you give me a little more time, I'll definitely finish it. Well, good progress. I believe you, said Suzumiya Musashi. That said, all the effort these past few days hadn't been in vain. Through their continuous practice, the house, originally cramped, had now become much more spacious, thanks to their daily efforts. For a moment, he glanced at Uzumaki Karin, who was practicing not far away. She was holding an extremely awkward stance, trying to maintain her balance. Even though her hair and the floor were soaked with sweat, she was still striving to keep her muscles steady. Suzumiya Musashi's eyes filled with relief. If Tenden's progress in practice only left him relatively satisfied, Uzumaki Karin's progress gave him a huge surprise. It had been about 6 months since she left Konoha. If you count from when Karin decided to practice taijutsu, it was even less. And in this short period of time, Uzumaki Karin's cultivation improvement was almost equivalent to several years of cultivation. This is an absolute physical difference. In terms of physical training, if Might Guy's physical potential is 10, then hers is around 7 or 8. Rock Lee probably has the same level, around 6 or 7. Except for Might Guy, compared to ordinary ninjas, they can be considered excellent, but they aren't geniuses. What is considered a genius? Uzumaki Karin is a genius. Might Guy's potential is 10, and he starts with at least 20. The training difficulties that had worried Suzumiya Musashi in the past, and the caution he had to exercise for fear of getting hurt, had disappeared for Uzumaki Karin. No matter how hard the training was, with a little sleep, she would return to normal the next day. Sometimes, just sitting down to eat was enough to restore her physical strength. Such a physique completely compensated for the practitioner's lack of willpower, which provoked immense envy in Suzumiya Musashi. Furthermore, Uzumaki Karin's training was anything but easy. Her level of effort was on par with Rock Lee's. Karin, rest, ready to eat. Hearing Suzumiya Musashi's words, Uzumaki Karin stopped what she was doing and stretched her muscles. Although she was sweating profusely, she maintained a relaxed posture. Several months of hard training hadn't tired her out. Compared to before, she radiated an enthusiastic temperament and a bright gaze, conveying her vigorous vitality. Tenten paused, and Uzumaki Karin suddenly looked up. Am I ready? Okay, Uzumaki Karin was excited, but also a little nervous. Really? Great. Do I need to make any preparations? No need. Suzumiya Musashi looked at Uzumaki Karin with satisfaction. Karin, many years ago, Brother Kai taught me the 8 gates of Dungeon. Now I will teach them to you. Once you practice this technique, you must also exercise strict self-control. Remember, you can only use it when protecting someone important. If I find out you're like Xiaoli and don't take care of your body, I'll punish you, Uzumaki Karin said confidently. Don't worry, brother, I'm not as foolish as Xiaoli, thank goodness. Suzumiya Musashi smiled and said, don't overthink things at night. Go to bed early. The real challenge will officially begin tomorrow. In the following days, Suzumiya Musashi began teaching Uzumaki Karen the fundamentals of 8 Gates ninjutsu. The rest of the time, he remained in Jufang Valley studying new techniques. What worried him was that, as time passed, the new technique still hadn't progressed much. He vaguely felt that his development of the wind escape attribute had reached a limit, and compared to the natural wind of the Valley of Absolute Wind, it was no less powerful in terms of its microscopic structure. Even if he tried again, there wouldn't be much improvement. The control remained uncontrollable. A fully developed and skilled technique shouldn't be out of control. This kind of loss of control is different from the loss of control of the Rasen Shuriken. When the Rasen Shuriken doesn't master the power of the fairy technique, it can't be controlled after being released from the hand and explodes. His new technique is obviously much more stable in the macroscopic structure of the wind attribute, and it won't explode even if released from the hand, but it can't be suppressed while still in the hand. Perplexed. Uncontrollable ninjutsu, even if powerful, is still too risky in the constantly changing battle. In the Zephyr Valley, amidst the strong wind, Suzumiya Musashi murmured to himself, "Why, the structure clearly feels right, so why can't it be suppressed and expanded to 20 meters, although it's quite powerful at 20 meters, but," Suzumiya Musashi said, and his voice suddenly stopped. He stared at the cannon in front of him with its rumbling winds and was stunned. After a few breaths, his eyes widened. It was like a lightning bolt that pierced my mind. A thought suddenly surged in my mind and then grew wildly. 20 meters, 20 meters, Suzumiya Musashi muttered to himself as if possessed by a demon. Why 20 meters? Is the windblade disc always around 20 meters? He thought of it. Every time he executed a new technique, no matter how much he tried to control it, no matter how much he changed his chakra, once the ninjutsu was formed, it would automatically begin to expand. Regardless of whether he let go of his hands or not, it expanded to a size of about 20 meters. And in this state, it maintained a special stability. An idea is running through my head. Is there a possibility? Under the new microscopic wind escape structure he constructed, the most reasonable form of this ninjutsu is. It's about 20 meters in size. This value is the most stable and reasonable under the new microscopic chakra structure of the wind style. With a strong wind, Suzumiya Musashi suddenly stood up. Chapter 202, New Wind Escape Technique, Wind Freezing Kiyuan Cut. Ignoring the pain of the strong wind whipping through his body, the thought grew stronger in his mind, and his eyes shone brighter and brighter. It's very easy to verify this assumption. He extended his right hand. Wind attribute chakra began to gather with a hissing sound. Before, he had suppressed it with all his might, as if throwing a spiral shuriken, trying to concentrate the chakra power in his hands. This time, he didn't suppress it. He raised his right hand and let the bright white disc in his hand expand naturally. His already limited chakra was quickly depleted. The amount of chakra consumed by the giant wind disc was far greater than that of a Rasengan or even a Rasen Shuriken. Sensing that his body's chakra was about to run out, Suzumiya Musashi didn't hesitate at all. Yin seal, release. The sealed chakra well in his body opened instantly, overflowing like a flood, instantly replenishing the consumed chakra. He didn't care about the exact amount consumed, and all his attention was focused on the giant disc he held above his head. Humping, buzzing, the buzzing grew more and more insistent until it became too high-pitched to hear. With his unreserved infusion of chakra, the disc above his head gradually stabilized. The size was just what Suzumiya Musashi had expected, remaining at a little over 20 meters. Suzumiya Musashi was ecstatic. Transform. It's finally done. After ceasing to force himself to contain it, the size of the new technique remained at 20 meters, and it was more stable than expected. Although it was enormous. Although against the gigantic, flaming white disc 20 meters high, it looked like an upright raisin beneath the white plate. But he had done it. So what if I'm big? In his perception, it's still stable and controllable. To test the properties of the new technique, he raised his right hand like this. He felt the extreme vibration emanating from his hands. He felt his chakra consumption decrease considerably after completing the ninjutsu condensation, and the next step was to test the power of the new technique. Looking at the narrow canyon in front of him, he waved his right hand and propelled the ninjutsu he was holding forward. Whoosh, not difficult. Under his control, the gigantic wind disc reached the narrowest part of the canyon at breakneck speed in the blink of an eye. Then, the silently spinning disc slammed into the canyon wall. Hum, 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 like a cork from a grinder. The edges on both sides of the enormous disc instantly sliced through the stone wall, leaving two smooth, deep grooves. Then, it hissed farther and farther away until it disappeared into the canyon. Ho ha ho ha, Suzumiya Musashi laughed, his laughter filled with joy. The next instant, he raised his right hand again with enthusiasm, and another giant disc condensed. This time, he didn't wield it directly, but controlled it to spin and move rapidly forward. Boom 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 boom, the earth trembled. The stone walls of Jufang Valley, which had remained unchanged for 100 years, suffered a great impact today. Pieces of stone and fragments rolled down the wall. The roar overwhelmed the strong wind that lashed the valley entrance. Suzumiya Musashi observed the scene caused by the ninjutsu, his mind racing. He had finally figured it out. Besides the Komaitachi clan, what is your purpose in coming to Jufang Valley? First, it is necessary to maximize the wind attribute in order to synthesize bloodstains in the future. This goal has been achieved in the fight against the strong wind of the past few days. Another purpose is to study a powerful wind escape technique that only he possesses. As a ninja, his ace in the hole is, of course, a combination of sealing and physical techniques. Against ordinary enemies, the combination of lightning releases rapid activation mode and super strength is enough to solve the problem. What he lacks most now is the ability to attack large targets. When facing giant spirit beasts like Wanj, he lacked effective means for a large-scale attack. Upon closer inspection, you discover he only has a skin rupture. If you were to encounter a large, hard-scaled summoning beast, or a tailed beast that didn't focus on physical form, his physical abilities would be even more limited. And now, the characteristics of the new technique compensate for this point. If any large psychic beast dares to face him relying on its size and defense, it will simply use a giant wind disc. Just thinking about it makes me happy. The new technique is finally complete. What should I call it? Suzumiya Musashi thought eagerly. The new technique's attack method is very similar to the cutting motion of a giant angle grinder. What if we call it wind style, angle grinder technique? No. That sounds awful. Suzumiya Musashi quickly dismissed the idea. A massive 20-meter disc, cutting in a circular motion, or should it be called circumcision? It doesn't sound very good, with a name. Why not just call it Kiyuan-zan? It sounds less powerful. Since it was developed in the Valley of Absolute Wind, then let's call it Kiyuan-zan of Absolute Wind. Suzumiya Musashi clapped his hands and felt that his talent for naming things was incredibly high, far surpassing that of a certain fourth Hokage. The name of the ninjutsu was decided, and Suzumiya Musashi continued to familiarize himself with the new jutsu. Now that the yin seal has been broken, we can seize the moment and try it a few more times. Familiarize yourself with the execution of the new techniques and understand their characteristics so you can use them more skillfully in future battles. Swoosh boom, 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 swoosh boom, 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 whoosh. As he executed the ninjutsu, Suzumiya Musashi carefully felt it out. Despite his expectations, the only drawback was that the chakra consumption was rather high. The chakra consumption of Zetsu Fenki Yuan-zan was much greater than that of ninjutsu like the Rasengan. Even greater than that of large-scale ninjutsu like the Water Dragon Bullet. By his calculation, it was almost half a card, an absolutely powerful large-scale ninjutsu. If he hadn't activated the yin seal, he could only perform it about 4 times at most in his normal state. Just as he was testing the new technique, a sudden roar came from the distance. Stop, 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 swoosh. Suzumiya Musashi brandished the already condensed Jufang Kiyuan-zan, looked up, and saw a white dot growing larger and larger in the distance of the cannon. Stop now. Suzumiya Musashi finally saw clearly that it was King Kama approaching. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Konoha Genius, Tenten. At that moment, the Scythe King no longer had the calm and relaxed appearance of old age. He arrived riding on the wind, leaving a trail of after-images in his wake, the crutch in his hand swinging incessantly. As he advanced, the strong wind in the canyon shifted. The wind blades, originally chaotic and unrestrained, unexpectedly settled into order. The strong wind swirled and blew, its powerful force affecting the Zetsuki Yuan-zan wielded by Suzumiya Musashi. The enormous, incandescent white disc gradually changed direction under the influence of the strong wind. The Scythe King gritted his teeth, veins bulged on his forehead, and the swinging of the crutch in his hand seemed to consume much of his strength. Under the lateral influence of the strong wind, the Jufang Qi Yuanzhen's original horizontal posture began to change, and it stood upright as it continued forward. The spinning edge grazed the stone wall. Go away, go away, with a loud shout from the Scythe King, the Jufang Qi Yuanzhen's direction finally changed completely, and it continued flying upward, higher and higher. Finally, it became a small white dot visible from view and disappeared into the sky. The Scythe King breathed a sigh of relief. Before he could say anything, a loud noise came from behind him, and sickle-shaped weasels of different sizes swarmed toward him. My king, what's wrong, my lord? Is there an earthquake? Is the earth dragon turning around? Is it thundering again? Your majesty, shut up, King Scythe, his head throbbing from the noise, shouted. The sickle-headed weasels finally fell silent and stared at each other, wide-eyed. Only then did King Scythe float in front of Suzumiya Musashi. Sensing the powerful chakra expanding in his body, Suzumiya Musashi withstood the shock and said, "They can't do that, King Kami. Is something wrong?" Suzumiya Musashi asked, puzzled. Stone. It has remained undisturbed for hundreds of years despite being buffeted by fierce winds. The hardness of the stone here is unmatched even by steel. I truly don't know where this human boy learned these skills. There wouldn't be the hurricane force winds of the canyon for thousands of years, and there would be no habitat for our Komedachi tribe. Then, this wall of the stone cannot be destroyed. If it is destroyed, the structure of the Valley of Absolute Wind might change. If the strong wind changes, the land of my sickle weasel clan might be. Suzumiya Musashi finally understood what he meant. He felt a slight fever rise in his face. He rushed to the sickle weasel habitat to practice, not only breaking the other party's spiritual contract but nearly destroying the Valley of Absolute Wind. The method didn't seem very authentic. He considered apologizing. The Scythe King continued, "Then please stop, we can talk about the spirit contract." Suzumiya Musashi suddenly swallowed his apology. "It's as you said, the matter of the contract can be discussed. It can be discussed, then wait for me, I'll bring her right away," said Suzumiya Musashi, turning and running out of the valley. I returned to my residence and approached Shianshin, who was still renovating it. "Stop practicing and follow me, Ali." "Master, where are we going?" Shianshin looked confused. "Go see your spirit beast." "But I haven't fulfilled the requirements yet," said Suzumiya Musashi, walking, and asked, "How many can be completed now?" "About 28, he said. First, the strong wind in Zephyr Valley was still too strong for Shianshin, so Suzumiya Musashi could only release lightning chakra to protect him. After a while, he arrived in front of the Sickle King and a group of sickle weasels. Looking at Tenten, protected by the chakra of Suzumiya Musashi, King Kama nodded. "It's not very convenient here. Let's go to the clan's lands first," he said, gently raising the staff in his hand. Accompanied by obvious energy fluctuations, a 5-star barrier slowly rose, protecting Suzumiya Musashi and Tenten. The whistling, piercing gale suddenly vanished. Suzumiya Musashi's eyes widened as he surveyed the scene before him. He didn't know the Scythe King's exact strength, but judging from the few times he had attacked, this old man's wind escape technique was undoubtedly the most powerful he had ever seen. With the Scythe King's barrier, he also dispelled Shianshin's lightning protection, who followed curiously. After a while, they reached the center of Jufang Valley and followed the winding cave paths into the mountain's interior. Inside the mountain, there were crisscrossing passages, much wider and quieter than the entrance. Shianshin looked around. Curious, they discovered that the cave's interior was clean and dry, much better than they had imagined. The deeper they ventured, the wider the space became, until they reached a radius of several tens of meters, and the Sickle King stopped. "Little ones, come out!" With a shout, a commotion erupted all around. Shianshin was astonished. After a while, one by one, the sickle-headed weasels poked their heads out, and upon seeing the Sickle King, they gathered together. "My king, what are outsiders doing here?" asked a camel. "Come here." The Kama King tapped the ground with his crutch and looked at Suzumiya Musashi. "Musashi-kun." Suzumiya Musashi brought Tenten closer and introduced her. "This is the disciple I told you about, Tenten, designated heir of a powerful Konoha clan, a rising star who mastered A-rank ninjutsu at such a young age." Shianshin's eyes widened. Master, Suzumiya Musashi glared at Tenten and told her to shut up. King sighed. What do you think? King sighed looked Shianchin up and down. Well, he looks quite handsome. Suzumiya Musashi seemed proud. King asked, can you show me the A-level ninjutsu you've mastered? Tenten glanced at Suzumiya Musashi and, seeing his encouraging look, nodded. Surrounded by a group of Komadochi, she calmed her slightly nervous emotions. Spiral pills, the blue chakra ball gathered in Tenten's palm. Compared to her time in Konoha, the power of her ninjutsu had increased considerably after this period of arduous practice. After the Rasengan condensed, Tenten's nervousness lessened a little. After days of practice, using the Rasengan it had become almost instinctive. King and the Komadochi watched Tenten's ninjutsu with wide eyes. Before they could even grasp what was happening, Tenten had already skillfully pressed the Rasengan into the ground. Boom, boom, as shards of stone flew through the air, round holes appeared in the ground, accompanied by the usual commands. 30. 30. 30. Chapter 204, Signing a Psychic Contract. I feel great every day. The nervousness of the moment didn't affect her. On the contrary, she felt that, with a little pressure, she performed better than usual. Perhaps it's not impossible to dig 30 holes in one go? 30. 30. Good, good. King Sickle suddenly intervened and interrupted Shianchin, who was concentrating on digging a hole. He looked up, confused. Didn't you say you wanted to see the A-level ninjutsu I've mastered? What's wrong with that? King Sickle exclaimed urgently. Stop. Stop right now. Very well. Tenten had no choice but to stop, dissatisfied, and looked at Suzumiya Musashi, confused. He said, King Sickle, how about my disciple's talent? Great. King Sickle gave a thumbs up. Excellent. He's simply the most talented young man I've ever met. Compared to your disciples, the younger generation of Tsunagakure is simply beyond compare. The psychic contract is fine. It's sealed. Every day is a little strange. First, the master said I had extraordinary talent and praised me. How could this big otter with a staff in front of me, the sickle-tailed weasel, also say that? Could it be that my talent is really good? When the king saw Shianchin stop, he imperceptibly wiped the non-existent cold sweat from his forehead. Musashi Jonin, your beloved disciple is as good as you. Very good. I can only say that they are worthy of being master and disciple. Even the way they practice ninjutsu is exactly the same as a demolition crew. If this continues, the house floor will be ruined. The King gestured with his hand and said, Kamidaoka, Komadoji, come here, you two sickle-shaped weasels, nearly a meter tall and much taller than their companions, approached. The king pointed to them both and said, Kamidaoka and Kamadaki are the most talented young people in our Komadochi clan. I believe your disciple should choose one of them as their contract partner. Tenten looked at Suzumiya Musashi, who hesitated for a moment and said, King Kami, you said earlier that the contract is negotiable. I wonder, will Tenten be able to choose for herself? The king hesitated. This is unprecedented. The entire Komadochi clan requires the approval of the Komadochi themselves. I will make an exception and help you choose the two most talented, Suzumiya Musashi said. Kama-sama, I believe this depends on personal chemistry. If we have good chemistry, everything will be easy. If we don't, it will be easy to be indecisive. If Shianchin were allowed to choose for himself, we definitely wouldn't have any complaints. If we signed the contract earlier, we can leave sooner. You know, I need a more spacious place to practice my ninjutsu. He looked at the king purposefully. If I waste time on this, I have nowhere else to practice wind escape. I can only practice. Choose. The king gestured decisively. You can choose any weasel here. As long as it's young. Your disciple is such an excellent ninja that I think everyone in the clan will be willing to do it. Suzumiya Musashi smiled contentedly and said, Thank you very much, Lord Kama. He whispered something in Shianchin's ear, who rolled his eyes and continued looking around among the weasels, until he finally noticed a stunned yellow-haired weasel. Look at that silly face, I saved you. Suddenly, he flew into a rage. Girl, who are you talking about? The king suddenly said. Lower your voice. What she said wasn't wrong. She looked at Shianchin gently. Right, Shianchin, you're right. This guy's a complete idiot. Her neck was strangled. Seeing this, the Sickle King's face darkened, causing a cold sweat to break out on him. When the king saw him silent, he turned to look at Shianchin, and a kind smile returned to his face. Shianchin, How about we switch one of us? Besides Kamadoka and Kamadoki, there's also Kamador, who's quite talented and knows how to use a spear. What do you think? Do you want to? I choose this one, Shianshin said firmly, shaking his head. Although he couldn't tell which Kamadochi was stronger, he had certainly done well to listen to the master. He continued, although at first glance he looks like a melon, if you look closely, he's still very energetic, especially that lock of yellow hair, so handsome and cool. Jian Duofang's eyes suddenly lit up. The resentment of being called a melon vanished from his mind instantly, and he laughed and said, "Little girl, you have excellent taste." The Scythe King heard the silly voice behind him and sighed helplessly. Although he always complained that Kamadofu wasn't very intelligent, in fact, he was the most talented and strongest wind player of the new generation of Kamadochi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have kept the other person by his side. At first, he wanted to hide, but Suzumiya Musashi, who had seen Kamadofu's movements, undoubtedly saw the opponent's strength and talent. At first, he wanted to negotiate the situation, but it turned out that this idiot was a complete idiot. He said helplessly, "Fine, just give the wind a scythe." Jian Duofang was stunned. "What? How is that okay? Haven't I agreed yet?" The Scythe King glared at him fiercely. "You won't accept? Why would you cooperate with others if I won't?" Before Kamado could react, Suzumiya Musashi spoke. "Kamadoka promised me, Tenten. She's still very weak and needs a strong, handsome, intelligent, and cool Kamadochi like you to help her." Jian Duofang was stunned. Then he suppressed the corners of his eyes and said awkwardly, "Oh, what are you talking about? I don't quite understand." Reluctantly, he said with dignity. Then, that's settled, King sighed. A group of sickle-tailed weasels. 10 minutes later. With a bloody handprint on Tenten's noble phantasm scroll, the contract was officially completed. Jian Duofang couldn't wait to go to Shianshin's side. Shianshin, where do we go now? Summoning beasts have to fight ninjas, right? Let's play. Okay, Shianshin, which one? I'll teach you to help only when you need it and aren't willing to fight, huh? Jian Duofang was very disappointed. "I thought I could go out and play now, speechless every day." If it weren't for Suzumiya Musashi asking him to choose the other group, would he really doubt that he was a powerful summoning beast? Suzumiya Musashi and Tenten didn't stay long and left quickly. Jian Duofang turned around disappointedly and saw the Sickle King's face, as black as the bottom of a pot. He immediately felt that something was wrong. Great King. Chapter 205, next stop, Earth. You, King Scythe struck Duofang hard with his crutch. "Did they throw your brain out at birth? How stupid. You can't even see my expression." "Look. I see it," Jian Duofang said weakly. "It's just an ordinary old face." Jian Duofang suddenly shut his mouth. King Scythe took a deep breath to calm his urge to attack. "Forget it, it's fate." Seeing this, Jian Duofang asked in confusion, "I signed a spirit contract with that person, isn't that good?" King Kamada replied, "It's not that it's bad. It's just that, originally, I didn't plan to let you sign a contract with a ninja. Even if you sign a contract, it can't be with just anyone." Kamado K's was even more confused. "Didn't you also say that Tenten is a genius ninja?" "Genius?" King Scythe exclaimed furiously. "Genius? If I hadn't said she was a genius, she and that Suzumiya Musashi would have destroyed my Zephyr Valley." "Jian Duofang, you can't blame me. It's your fault you sounded so real that you fooled an intelligent person like me." The Scythe King felt a pain in his chest. After a long while, he said helplessly, forget it. Although I'm not a genius, I'm not evil. Besides, her master Suzumiya Musashi is very powerful. If you follow her as an apprentice, your future shouldn't be bad." "So be it." After leaving the Valley of Absolute Wind, Shianshin finally couldn't contain his curiosity and spoke. "Master, what happened? There are so many sickle-tailed weasels. Why did you want me to choose the blonde one?" "What? Don't you like her?" "I don't dislike her," Shianshin said. "It's a little strange, Master. Why did you let me choose her?" Suzumiya Musashi replied, "Nothing, I just saw Kamadofu in action." After thinking for a while, he reminded Shianshin, "In the future, if you use the spirit scythe in battle, remember to clearly indicate to it if you intend to destroy the enemy." Puzzled, Shianshin asked, "Why?" Suzumiya Musashi replied, "It's nothing, you'll understand later." Afterward, Suzumiya Musashi stayed away from Zephyr Valley for a while. The new Jufenki Yuanzan technique he had just completed needed to be mastered and improved as soon as possible, and his new research on wind attributes also needed to be completed. Furthermore, he had consumed the Yin Seal and needed to replenish it before departing to have enough confidence to handle emergencies. After another half-month, the few people were finally ready to leave. After packing their belongings, Xianchen and the others surveyed the simple residence where they had been staying. He had lived there for half a year. Although it seemed like a deserted place, with strong winds blowing all day and incredibly boring, I still resisted leaving when I was about to. During the 6 months they had spent here, they had made many memories and progressed greatly in their skills. Uzumaki Karen had learned the 8 gates of ninjutsu, and Tenten had finally obtained the powerful summoning beast she had always dreamed of. "Alright, stop staring," said Suzumiya Musashi. "Karen, don't you have a camera? Let's take a group photo." Okay, Xianchen readily agreed with the suggestion. Facing Z2 Valley, Suzumiya Musashi held the camera upside down, and the residence behind him and the entrance to Z2 Valley were captured in the frame. With a click, the image froze. "Let's go, there's a wider world waiting for us further on." Shortly after leaving Jufang Valley, Xianchen and the other spirits lifted once more. The training at the first stop finally ended, and they immediately hurried to the nearest town. Watching people come and go along the street and smelling the voices and aromas wafting from the shops, Xianchen and Bai felt like they were in another world. Tenten looked around excitedly and then at Karen, who was standing beside her. "Karen, where should we go first?" "To eat or to go shopping." "Karen, why don't you seem excited?" Uzumaki Karen said. "Because of the Taijutsu training, we must try to avoid outside influences. Now nothing is more important to me than spiritual practice." Xianchen was suddenly speechless. Ever since Uzumaki Karen began practicing the 8 gates ninjutsu, her personality had become less and less like before, and she had become much more resilient and calm. She was somewhat like Suzumiya Musashi back then. Aside from training, everything else had been put aside. He glanced at Suzumiya Musashi standing beside him. This last bit was even more excessive. Although he walked with a normal expression, close observation revealed that several parts of Suzumiya Musashi's body glowed with light, a result of the special weight-bearing ninja tools taking effect under the chakra infusion. Xianchen couldn't help but sigh inwardly, thinking that the master was still the same. His perseverance in practice was just as strong as before. The group stayed in the village for 2 days. They took a nice hot bath, rested, and then strolled around the Wind Kingdom village. Only when they had recovered would they depart again. "Master, what are our next stops?" Xianchen asked as they set off on their journey once more. "Earth, the Earth Kingdom? Isn't it the Wind Kingdom?" Xianchen asked, puzzled. Suzumiya Musashi said, "Except for the Valley of the Absolute Wind, there is nothing special in the Wind Realm. The people are not prosperous. If you venture further, there is nothing but sand." "What does the Earth have?" Suzumiya Musashi smiled and said, "In the land of the Earth, of course there is Earth." Chapter 206, Geomagnetic Swamp. She pouts in dissatisfaction every day. The teacher likes to keep people on edge. Tisk, the few who remained in the Wind Kingdom didn't linger long before heading north. They stopped and moved on, resting when they found a village and camping in the wilderness if there wasn't one. After traversing the Wind Kingdom, we finally reached the Earth Kingdom. However, it hadn't changed much. The yellow sand had gradually turned into loess, and vegetation and population remained sparse. The landscape only changed slowly as we ventured deeper into Earth. There were more and more villages, and the environment improved. Compared to Konoha, Earth was vast and sparsely populated, and people's lives were relatively stable, but not prosperous. "It doesn't seem like anything special. It's better than the Wind Kingdom, but not by much," Xianchen and the others commented. Suzumiya Musashi said, "The Wind Realm is far superior. Tsuchikage Inoki is much stronger than the Kazakage, both in strength and skill." Uzumaki Karen said, "Didn't you say the Kazakage isn't really a cage, but just a fortune hunter?" Suzumiya Musashi. The group traveled along the border of the Land of Earth, near Takanin village, and aside from resting in the villages, they didn't linger long. After a while, they finally reached their destination. "We've arrived," said Suzumiya Musashi, gesturing to the rolling mountains that stretched out before them. "Master, is this our destination?" "Yes," Suzumiya Musashi replied, "the border separating the Land of Earth and Takanin village, the Yellow Earth Forest." Xianchen asked, "What's going on this time?" Isn't it the same as in the Valley of the Absolute Wind, where not a single living thing can be seen? Suzumiya Musashi said. Not this time. There must be living creatures inside. Suzumiya Musashi wasn't lying to them. The Lotus Forest is a vast expanse of mountains, teeming with snakes, insects, rats, ants, beasts, and birds. Moreover, there are many interesting environments, such as poisonous ponds, swamps, beast dens, and traps. A few days after entering the Lotus Forest, Xianshan began to miss the tranquility of Zhifang Valley. Late into the night, everyone was sitting around the campfire, and Xianshan said bitterly, "Master, I was wrong. The Forest of the Dead Wind is a truly beautiful place. I shouldn't have said it was barren. The Yellow Earth Forest isn't a place where no one defecates. But the problem is that there are too many people defecating." The ferocious tigers and jackals were easy to control, but what truly tormented them was the endless stream of insects and venomous snakes. She had to be wary of her surroundings when sitting on the ground, fearing that a venomous, slippery snake would crawl up onto her feet if she wasn't careful. In just a few days, she grew tired of that feeling. "Relax, Xianshan," Suzumiya Musashi comforted her. "Don't just see the bad side of things, there are good sides too. You can't eat such fresh roasted snake meat and boar hind legs in the windless valley." Xianshan, oh, she would rather eat dried food. Suzumiya Musashi said, "Alright, you can sleep well tonight. I'll set up a barrier around the tent later, so you don't have to worry about the poisonous insects. But we still have to keep an eye out. What if a wild beast comes along?" Suzumiya Musashi said, "Don't worry, I've already taken care of it. There's no need to keep watch. If you keep watch all night, you won't get enough sleep, which will affect the quality of your cultivation. Starting today, I'm seeking help." "Helpers?" Xianshan asked, confused. "There are only a few of us. Where can we get help?" Suzumiya Musashi smiled. "I just remembered, psychic art." Bang! With a puff of smoke, a stupid ninja dog appeared in front of them. Before he could even realize the situation, Suzumiya Musashi had already ordered, "Jack, you're on guard today. If there's a beast you can't control, remember to call us." "Jack, the ninja dog, how come Pete eats and sleeps well every day, but I have to work the night shift? Dogs need sleep too." Suzumiya Musashi didn't care about anything else and fell peacefully asleep after cleaning up. As his strength increased, the ninja dog's attitude toward him began to change. Along with the roll of money, the services the ninja dogs provided him began to diversify. He completed the task, and Suzumiya Musashi directed several people to deepen their training and educate them simultaneously. Don't complain about the environment. The strong never complain about their environment, not even ninjas. The ability to adapt to adverse environments is a mandatory course for you. Future missions will not only be combat-based, and they will need to adapt to different environments. The snakes, insects, rats, ants, and the poisonous mist here are for honing your skills, ninja. As long as you persevere and keep moving forward, one day, the future of the ninja world will belong to you." The three of them had dull expressions. Especially Bai, who seemed somewhat skeptical about life. He wasn't a student of Suzumiya Musashi, just a temporary worker. "They could study me, and I could take care of their food and daily needs, but what kind of training was that? I'm not a Konoha ninja." A long time passed. That day, Suzumiya Musashi was still walking and giving instructions to various people. Suddenly, he stopped. The three of them looked at him, confused. "What happened, Suzumiya Musashi?" "We should be there." In his perception, several kilometers away, an extremely intense earth attribute force was emitting strong fluctuations. Uzumaki Karin asked, "Did you arrive?" "What arrived?" Just as she had been told, she soon perceived the difference as well. A strong surge of energy surged in the distance. The pure power was dense and stagnant, creating wave after wave. "What did you sense? Why not me?" Xianshan asked, puzzled. However, as they moved forward, the energy fluctuations became increasingly apparent, and even she could sense the abnormal fluctuations in the air. "Be careful," Suzumiya Musashi warned. "Master, what did we find?" Suzumiya Musashi explained as they walked. "According to Konoha's records, there is a strong earth-type energy hidden in the Yellow Earth Forest. It is rumored to be called the Geomagnetic Demon Swamp," Xianshan said. "The Geomagnetic Demon Swamp? What a strange name," Suzumiya Musashi replied. "The name doesn't matter, the important thing is the Earth's energy. I wasn't sure before, But I didn't expect us to find it. It's very likely this place is similar to the Valley of the Absolute Wind. I want to experience the Earth's natural energy and see if it can help me improve my understanding and practice of the Earth attribute chakra. The more they walked, the more evident the energy fluctuations became. After a while, the surrounding landscape began to change. The trees were more leafy, the vegetation greener. The intense scent of earth permeated the nose, and waves of energy spread over the bodies of several people like a thick mist. Suzumiya Musashi, somewhat excited, stared ahead with wide eyes. Finally, he saw the source of the fluctuation, a golden light. An area of 10 square meters formed between several towering trees. In the center of the area was a small golden pond with a diameter of no more than 5 meters. From the center of the pond, circles of windless waves emerged, slowly spreading outwards. Along with the waves, a tide of extremely rich energy arose. Is this the geomagnetic demon swamp? Shianshin and his friend's eyes widened. It should be, Suzumiya Musashi said uncertainly. I haven't seen it either. There are still very few records of it in Konoha. He walked to the edge of the pond, picked up a branch, and gently stirred it. As he moved it, the golden water of the pond rippled gently again, with a texture similar to mercury. Amidst the golden light, even stronger energy fluctuations emanated. It had been refined to the extreme. He ventured a little further and dipped his finger into the water. As the contact became closer, an intense energy seemed to seep between them. The earth chakra in his body suddenly activated much more. It should be correct, Suzumiya Musashi was certain in his heart. Master, what are you going to do? Just reach out and feel it, Shianshin asked. He remembered how Suzumiya Musashi practiced in Zephyr Valley. A bath? No need, Suzumiya Musashi shook his head. This golden liquid is composed of the condensed natural energy of the earth element. Just collect them and study them carefully when you return. As he spoke, Suzumiya Musashi took out the sealing scroll and spread it on the edge of the pond. Compared to ordinary containers, sealing scrolls are more reliable. With a chakra of, it seems I'm in luck, Suzumiya Musashi said as he considered how much he should take. Should he take some or all of it? Taking it all didn't seem like a good idea. Just as he was thinking this, the ground began to tremble slightly. The perceptive Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karan noticed that something was wrong instantly. Could it be an earthquake? As soon as he thought this, the pond in front of him began to ripple violently. These weren't ripples caused by a disturbance, but rather a chaotic, disordered bubbling. Grumble, gurgle, a large number of bubbles began to appear in the golden pool. Suzumiya Musashi's body fluctuated. This isn't right. Suzumiya Musashi sensed that something was wrong. He acted decisively and immediately stopped the flow of golden liquid. He quickly formed hand seals and swiftly completed the sealing ritual. Stand back, he didn't need to be reminded. As soon as he put away the scroll, Uzumaki Karan had already withdrawn the other two. Suzumiya Musashi put away the scroll and also stood back. Boom. Chapter 207, Jinchi's Mutation. In the golden pool, an earthy, almost condensed energy spread across his face. As the energy expanded, the fluctuations in the golden pool instantly calmed, going from their original boiling state to becoming as smooth as a mirror. Are you alright? Suzumiya Musashi was puzzled. The moment he thought it, an even stronger wave of energy exploded. Suzumiya Musashi instantly dodged and stood before the three of them. The golden liquid rose into the sky, then continued to twist and tangle in the air, transforming into a golden worm over 10 meters long. Its claws and fangs were constantly changing. What's happening? Has the golden liquid turned into a spirit? Suzumiya Musashi thought to himself, worried that the long worm would plummet into the sky in an instant, flying higher and higher. When it was nearly 100 meters above the ground, right before Suzumiya Musashi's wide eyes, the golden worm exploded. Boom! It was like thunder in the clear sky. The golden liquid turned into a mist that filled the sky and spread between heaven and earth in the blink of an eye. Everything in sight was golden. It boiled, as if it were shifting toward the earth attribute. Tenten and the other two were even more unbearable. Their blood was pumping with energy, and their eyes seemed to be drunk. Watch out, Suzumiya Musashi shouted to remind them, and Shianshin and the others regained their senses. The golden mist filled the air and then slowly dispersed, soaking the earth and trees like frost and rain. As the golden mist spread into the afternoon, the gold in the sky began to slowly dilute until it was restored. Is everything going to be alright this time? Suzumiya Musashi guessed. The mist and the golden pond had vanished, leaving only the pristine forests. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, something changed again. Why are the trees around him shorter? Wait. They're not shorter, they're falling over. Whether bushes or giant trees, all the vegetation around him was slowly sinking. The ground, which had originally been quite solid, seemed to soften, and the tree roots were gradually being sucked into the earth. The ground is sinking, Uzumaki Karen cried out. The soles of his feet had sunk slightly into the mud. Suzumiya Musashi had already reached out toward him. As the scroll unfurled before him, the ritual was activated, and the cry of an eagle was heard. Get up! Uzumaki Karen stamped her foot hard on the ground, and as the earth splashed, the force of the impact sent her flying, landing her on the back of the giant eagle. Tenten wasn't as strong as Uzumaki Karen, so she didn't dare step directly onto the gradually softening mud. She drew a long whip from her body and wrapped it around the giant eagle's talons. As the giant eagle flapped its wings, it grabbed by, and both were lifted and tossed toward it. Master, here they come. Suzumiya Musashi no longer hesitated. He bent his knees slightly and then thrust them forward. With a loud thud, the 2 feet that had been digging into the ground exploded into a ball of chakra. The ground instantly erupted as if struck by an explosive talisman. The ground rose up, revealing the black mud beneath. There was also a black figure hidden in the mud that had yet to appear. With his feet on the giant eagle's back, Suzumiya Musashi swiftly piloted it into the air. After ascending to a great height, several people looked down. With just one glance, their bodies tensed suddenly and their pupils dilated. The forest beneath my feet had vanished completely in a short time. Not a trace of flowers, grass, or trees remained. Looking around, the forest had become a vast swamp of black mud, almost endless in sight. In the swamp, black mud rose up, and moving figures hovered. Master, what is this? Horror erupted. Suzumiya Musashi smiled bitterly and shook his head. I don't know either. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. My actions were too rash. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's retreat first, suggested Uzumaki Karen. Suzumiya Musashi thought the same. The giant eagle beneath their feet cried out, turned around, and flew away. But before they could fly 100 meters, they heard roars below. Several people looked down, shocked by the scene. In the black swamp, the rising figure finally appeared. How to put it, it's terrifying and repulsive. The bodies ranged from several meters to over 10 meters long, covered in black mud, and resembled leeches or venomous snakes. One end of the body was shaped like a suction cup, and at the other, ferocious mouth parts took up almost the entire head, with bright, sharp teeth overlapping and intertwined. What kind of monster is this? Shianshin asked, trembling. In the swamp, the mud was constantly churning, and there were so many strange snakes like this that it was impossible to count them at a glance. He couldn't even imagine the terrible scene it would be if one fell in right then. Not to mention, even Bai, who is always calm, seemed uneasy at that moment. No one knew the answer. The strange snake continued to roar below. It endured fear every day and bit disdainfully, baring its teeth. What's its name? Climb up if you can. How dare you scare us? We can fly, but can you too? Lululu. After the teasing, Shianshin finally felt the fear in her heart dissipate a little. At that moment, Shianshin suddenly stumbled. She seemed a bit unsteady on the giant eagle and almost fell to the ground. Bai quickly caught her and said, be careful. It will be troublesome if you fall. Shianshin was frightened and thought she simply wasn't keeping her balance. But at that moment, the expressions of Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karen suddenly changed. Uzumaki Karen said in a grave voice, it's not that we can't keep our balance. It's the eagle that's sinking. Sinking? Shianshin asked in surprise. How could the giant eagle sink? Uzumaki Karen didn't answer, but poked her head out and looked down. Her sharp teeth opened and emitted ferocious roars toward the sky. What terrified her was that there weren't just one, or a few, strange snakes. At first glance, there were probably hundreds or even thousands of these sharp teeth, not counting those that couldn't be clearly seen from a distance. Stronger, Uzumaki Karen exclaimed. Oki-kun's giant eagle can't fly. Suzumiya Musashi struggled to control it and injected more chakra into the scroll to increase its power. But it was in vain. No matter how much she flapped her wings, her body didn't rise. Instead, it continued to fall. As she moved, a small amount of ink began to trickle down her body. Then, she was sucked into the swamp at breakneck speed. Chapter 208, Crisis and Visitors. This won't work. Suzumiya Musashi made a quick decision. There was no time to regret his reckless behavior, and his brain instantly began working at full speed. His own ninjutsu, treasures, every available resource flooded his mind. None of them possessed the ninjutsu that allowed him to fly. Shianchin's summoning beast, Kandu Fen, could only walk on the blades of wind and had no means to face the defenseless sky. Furthermore, none of them possessed ninja summoning beasts that could fly. In an instant, Suzumiya Musashi thought of the only method he could try. He quickly pulled the scroll from his body. They were the giant eagle scrolls that Nojiri Oki had prepared for him during their travels so he could save his legs. But now they had become his salvation, though unfortunately, they weren't very durable. There were still 7 scrolls left, and he quickly handed them to the 3 of them for safekeeping. The giant eagle was still struggling and falling, so he didn't have time to explain much. Go to a high place and tear the scroll. Run north, he shouted loudly, reached out, grabbed the cloth around Bai's waist, and wrapped his arms around her. In the blink of an eye, she became a black dot in the sky. Day after day, Suzumiya Musashi remembered, and Tenten, who already knew his intentions, hurried to prepare. Suzumiya Musashi put his arm around Tenten and did the same, and she followed closely behind. As the giant fell, the last one had to use more strength and throw farther. Uzumaki Karin's body was stronger after being tempered by her physical abilities, so she ended up in last place. When Suzumiya Musashi embraced Uzumaki Karin, the giant eagle could no longer withstand the enormous gravitational force from below and shattered into an ink-filled sky. Swoosh! Uzumaki Karin, her body tense, was thrown by Suzumiya Musashi with all his might, emitting an even sharper sound of wind. "Big brother, don't worry about me," shouted Suzumiya Musashi, and then he fell. Uzumaki Karin was extremely worried, but she also knew that she couldn't become a burden to Suzumiya Musashi at that moment. When her figure reached its maximum height, she tore the Nojiri Oki scroll and stepped on the back of the giant eagle that had reappeared. Soon, she was beside Shianchin and the others. "Master, what should I do?" Shianchin was extremely anxious. Uzumaki Karin gritted her teeth and said, "Brother, I should have a way out. Let's get out of here first." After that, the 3 mounted their giant eagles and flew high to the north. Suzumiya Musashi continued to fall. He felt deep regret. He had thought the Yellow Earth Forest was just an adventure similar to the Valley of the Absolute Wind, but he never imagined encountering such danger. "It's my fault. I was ignorant and too careless. I hope they're alright." Below, the dark swamp continued to expand before his eyes, and groups of strange snakes reared their heads, emitting shrill roars that made Suzumiya Musashi feel a tingling sensation in his head. Seeing that he was about to fall into the mud, he quickly formed hand seals. Fire ladder, fireball. A huge fireball appeared out of nowhere and crashed into the monstrous snake. The moment it exploded, the monstrous snake's shriek became even sharper. Suzumiya Musashi's body was completely engulfed in flames in the blink of an eye. The lightning armor enveloped him completely. A comet appeared, and a massive amount of mud erupted and exploded in all directions. Crash! Black mud rained down across the sky, and the smell of earth was pungent. Suzumiya Musashi harnessed the force of the recoil and instantly bounced toward Tenten and the others. But gravity was too strong. He had barely risen a few dozen meters when, under the influence of the strong gravity, his body traced a rapidly falling parabola through the air and plummeted back into the mud pit. Dozens of strange snakes were already waiting for him with bared fangs and claws, as if anticipating a gift from nature. Suzumiya Musashi was a little annoyed. Although these strange snakes were terrifying and repulsive, he simply didn't think they could hold him back. With the help of his lightning armor and his super strength, he would fight his way out of the mud even if he had to beat it savagely. Boom, boom, enormous amounts of mud continued to erupt, and with each explosion, Suzumiya Musashi was propelled dozens of meters forward with tremendous force. Seen from above, he resembled a stone skipping across the mud. Occasionally, a strange serpent, over 10 meters long, was able to withstand the impact of his strange power. It raised its massive, ferocious head and bit him fiercely, but it too was torn apart by his powerful force. Uzumaki Karin and the others continued flying north. Even so, the powerful suction still made the giant eagle tremble. Looking down, they saw that the vast swamp seemed to stretch on forever, and as the giant eagle's chakra gradually dwindled, it found it increasingly difficult to resist the powerful gravitational force that overwhelmed him. "If we keep this up, we'll fall again," Bai warned. Uzumaki Karin and Tenten frowned, but for a moment they couldn't find a solution. The swamp area was far too vast, and it was the first time they'd encountered such a situation, so they had no way to deal with it. Finally, the giant eagle's body began to descend, its form becoming increasingly unstable. Uzumaki Karin said decisively, "Change eagles, the scroll tower." The three switched to the second giant eagle, and this one lost the ninja controlling it, could no longer hold on, and shattered into pieces in midair. Falling. The few who remained held on for a while, and as they stared at the seemingly endless swamp, their faces grew increasingly ugly. "Are we going to get killed here?" "It depends," cursed Uzumaki Karin. "I don't know if Master will be able to escape." Tenten was still worried about Suzumiya Musashi. Even with the giant eagle's help, they couldn't escape very far. Even if Suzumiya Musashi were powerful, how long could he hold out? Bang! The giant eagle beneath Bai's feet shattered. Bang! Bang! Uzumaki Karin and Tenten followed closely behind. Ah! Shianshin couldn't help but scream and pressed her lips tightly together. Even if you die, you must die with dignity. She simply couldn't accept that she hadn't yet become a great kunoichi. As she fell, Uzumaki Karin turned and looked in the direction of Suzumiya Musashi. Is she really going to die? What a pity. It would be great if I could die closer to my brother. Despair filled the hearts of several people. Just as several were falling, Uzumaki Karin sensed something unusual and looked up sharply. The most striking thing was the transparent wings on the other person's back, flapping at great speed. Uzumaki Karin's eyes widened in surprise. "It's you." Chapter 209 Fu. "It's you." Seeing her opponent's wings, Uzumaki Karin suddenly remembered something. Earlier, when she sensed energy fluctuations while remembering Suzumiya Musashi, she felt someone watching her from behind, and after careful observation, she realized it was a flying object. At first, she thought it was an animal, but it turned out to be a human. But now was a critical moment, not the time to question the other party. Because the other party extended a helping hand. The wheat-skinned girl had wings on her back, and her movement was as swift as a gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, she was above Uzumaki Karin, wrapped her arms around her waist, and flew upward. Even Uzumaki Karin felt the gravity from below was quite strong, but it didn't seem to affect the girl in front of her much. With a flap of her wings, the Disciplinary Inspection Commission girl easily lifted her up. "There are two more people," Uzumaki Karin called for help. "Don't worry," the girl spoke, then released the hand holding Uzumaki Karin and grabbed the other person with one hand. With her free hand, she dried her back and brandished the long whip, which descended supplely and wrapped around Tenten and Bai. "Hold on tight," the girl exclaimed, though she only felt a little tired, and continued flying north with the three of them. The landscape flashed by, and after a long while, they could finally see the edge of the swamp. The black mud kept growing, swallowing the land and trees step by step. After flying over the swamp, the strong gravity that had been pressing down on them suddenly eased. After flying some distance again, the girl lowered Uzumaki Karin and the other two to the ground. "Uzumaki Karin, thank you, my name is Fu, you're welcome, you should hurry and head north. If you go slowly, the swamp will catch up with you. I'll go see if that man is alright," Fu said with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly flew back the way he had come. Uzumaki Karin was about to ask Suzumiya Musashi for help, but the words caught in her throat. She and Shianshin exchanged a glance and saw the curiosity in each other's eyes. This Fu, of unknown origin, seemed overly eager. However, the other party had been a great help to him and the others. Uzumaki Karin sensed the energy field gradually approaching from the south and made a decisive move. "Let's go north, try to escape from here, and wait for news of my brother." Boom. A strange snake blocking the path was crushed by Suzumiya Musashi with a single punch. Chakra exploded beneath his feet once more, and the powerful impact sent him leaping high into the air. The strange snake lurking in the mud was no match for him. But he felt no joy. He seemed to have discovered that he had killed quite a few strange snakes, but none left a complete carcass. This wasn't due to the strength of his own power, but rather to the fact that the other party lacked a physical body. It was as if the mixture in the mud created an animal under the influence of the power, instead of a real life. In this case, there would be no corpse, because every time he crushed the strange snake, he only dispersed a force that soon recondensed. Of course, it wasn't just these things that gave him a serious appearance. It would be fine if the strange snake couldn't be killed. More importantly, He had already run a great distance, but he still hadn't left the swamp. At his speed. How big could this swamp that suddenly seemed so vast actually be? Suzumiya Musashi was annoyed. Was it time to unlock the yin seal again? The strange snake's power seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. His yin seal hadn't been accumulating for very long. Even if he unlocked the yin seal, how long would it last? Buzz! Suddenly, there was the sound of a large bee's wings in the distance. Suzumiya Musashi looked up and, seeing who was approaching, couldn't hide his surprise. It's her. Just as he saw who was coming, Suzumiya Musashi's body fell back under control. He could only lower his head and prepare to face the monstrous snake's attack once more. Bang, 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 boom, bang, 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 the black mud exploded. It was as if a handful of concentrated salt had been sprinkled into the loach's bowl. As Suzumiya Musashi fell again, before he could forcefully break free, strange snakes over 10 meters long rolled toward him and entangled him. Sharp teeth flew, a piercing hiss filled the air, and the smell of fish was pungent. Suzumiya Musashi had no choice but to use his physical abilities, constantly darting up and down to attack the monstrous snake. A sharp tooth was in midair, and he waved his hand to interrupt it. As soon as one strange snake died, another immediately filled the gap in the attack. For an instant, Suzumiya Musashi's battle seemed fraught with danger. Catch him, Fu shouted softly. The slender whip danced supplely and shot towards Suzumiya Musashi. Grab the whip and I'll get you out, Fu yelled. Suzumiya Musashi ignored him. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave, but he didn't believe the other side's whip could break the monstrous snake's block. Bang! A mouthful of sharp teeth flashed by. Bitten by the strange snake. Then, a thick, segmented tail suddenly burst from the mud and struck the long whip, shattering it to pieces. That was powerful. The enormous force of the recoil made the whip's handle fly out of his hand. With no time to pity his whip, Fu felt a little more fear. Seeing Suzumiya Musashi relentlessly bombarding the strange snake, she couldn't help but be surprised. This man is so strong. I thought it was incredible that the other group could survive in the geomagnetic swamp for so long. I didn't expect a monstrous snake, which the opponent could easily crush with a single punch, to be so powerful. I underestimated the opponent. But now, Suzumiya Musashi is trapped in the mud by a strange snake. How will he ever escape? Swoosh! The mud suddenly churned, and a ferocious mouthpart, as large as a water tank, hurtled toward Fu. Fu screamed and quickly adjusted his wings to dodge it. Finally, he dodged it at the moment of impact. Having dodged a dangerous attack, Fuelima took off again and continued watching, looking for an opportunity to lift Suzumiya Musashi. Get away, said Suzumiya Musashi's voice from below. So what will you do then? Fu asked worriedly. Don't worry, I'll be fine soon. Hearing this, Fu could only back away again. Boom, with a single palm, he sliced the strange snake in two. Right in front of him, it was cut in half. Suzumiya Musashi coldly observed the frequency of the monstrous snake's attacks as its body moved swiftly. When he finally found an opening, he formed hand seals. In an instant, thunder flashed. The chakra in his body suddenly surged in great quantities, almost reaching the bottom. The violent light of the thunder flashed in his hands. Lightning release, the king's technique. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 Escape. Boom, crack, crack, the enormous energy of thunder roared instantly. Suzumiya Musashi didn't know much about lightning-style ninjutsu. What he was demonstrating at that moment was nothing more than unleashing all the violent energy of thunder. It wasn't necessary to kill the enemy, as long as the amount was large enough, the thunder would be more powerful. At that moment, he even shattered the thunder armor of his body, turning it into fragments of lightning. Layers of thunder energy hissed and spread out with him at their center. Boom, the dazzling blue lightning cleared the dark swamp. Just as Suzumiya Musashi had expected. The instant the lightning pierced through, all the monstrous snakes were struck by lightning. No, they were struck by lightning. The offensive stopped for a moment, and some smaller monstrous snakes were directly disintegrated by the surge of lightning, turning into mud and dissipated earth energy. Musashi's eyes flickered, and as the monstrous snake's attack slowed, she unleashed her supernatural power. Boom, Explosive mud splattered the heads and faces of the monstrous snakes. Suzumiya Musashi suddenly rose into the air and swiftly approached Fu, startled. Fu was about to swing her whip when she realized it had just been destroyed. In a tacit understanding, she flew swiftly northward. "Thank you." In mid-air, Suzumiya Musashi expressed her gratitude. Fu smiled gently. "My name is Fu, Suzumiya Musashi." Fu asked curiously, "Why did you think to come here?" All she could see was the black mud and the strange snake that was weakly roaring at her. After flying for a while, she finally glimpsed a faint border to the north. "What a vast area," she sighed. "It's not just large in area," Fu said from above. "In addition to its vast expanse, the geomagnetic magic swamp is constantly shifting. Therefore, people trapped in it often die without a burial site. Dangerous. If only I'd known, I'll come back fully prepared." "Ha ha ha." Fu was amused by her words. She explained, "The geomagnetic magic swamp is usually just a small golden pond. It appears in different areas of the Loess forest every day and is extremely difficult to find. Therefore, when outsiders hear rumors that the geomagnetic magic swamp is moving, they mistakenly believe it's because the golden pond is moving daily. It will only truly move when it transforms into geomagnetic magic swamp. Whenever someone tries to disturb the golden pond, the true form of the geomagnetic demon swamp will be revealed, and few will be able to escape. If I hadn't run away today, and had happened to pass by there, you'd be in serious trouble." Suzumiya Musashi could only thank her again. After flying for a while, Suzumiya Musashi finally spotted the edge of the swamp. Just as Fu had said, the boundary was constantly shifting. Wolves and hyenas darted out, while slower animals were swallowed up by the swamp. "It's incredibly fast, it's quite a sight," Suzumiya Musashi sighed, but Fu's surprised voice came from above. "It doesn't seem right." Suzumiya Musashi looked at Fu's chin. "What's wrong?" Fu frowned as she watched the swamp shift below. "It's too fast. I remember the records saying it only swallowed certain reptiles like snakes and insects. But now, even rabbits are being swallowed up by accident." Suzumiya Musashi was confused. She had too little information about the geomagnetic demon swamp to analyze the difference. Fu muttered to herself. "Shouldn't it be like this? Even if someone were to disturb the golden pond, it wouldn't be this dramatic, unless," as if suddenly thinking of something, Fu's eyes widened. He lowered his head and looked at Suzumiya Musashi. "You didn't disturb the golden liquid in the golden pond, Suzumiya Musashi." "Well, the sky's so blue today, and the temperature seems a bit higher than yesterday. The air quality is somewhat normal." Seeing Suzumiya Musashi's evasive gaze, Fu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "No wonder, you're too brave, aren't you? You dare to take some." "Suzumiya Musashi, I just saw that no one was using the thing, so I took some. Besides, the treasures of heaven and earth. Ninja stuff, how can I ask you to take them? I found them, what's the point of picking it up?" Fu said with a smile. "You're not thinking of achieving enlightenment with this, are you?" "Isn't that possible?" asked Suzumiya Musashi. "What do you think?" asked Fu. "If this thing truly allowed ninjas to understand something, wouldn't cage-level masters from every major country come to try their luck? The energy of that thing is too strange. Ninjas can't absorb it at all. It's not worth studying. The reason no one comes is, first, because it's useless. Second, because it's troublesome. Not only is it difficult to escape the geomagnetic demon swamp, but even if you manage to escape, the ninjas of Iwagakure won't give up easily, so I advise you to throw that thing away now to avoid trouble. The wild swamp below will continue to pursue you." Suzumiya Musashi hesitated. "I found it with great difficulty, and you're just going to throw it away." He didn't want to. Besides, just because others couldn't understand something didn't mean he couldn't. His mentor once said, "Even a pile of crap can be useful in the field of research." The young man felt deeply encouraged and kept this phrase in mind. The golden liquid in the golden pond was obviously a good thing, and she didn't want to throw it away. Seeing Fu staring at her, she whispered, "Well, can't you just not throw it away, Fu? What do you think?" "It's completely useless. And as long as you're within Earth's range, they'll detect you." "Suzumiya Musashi, how about I give you half?" "You didn't lie to me, did you?" Suzumiya Musashi's face darkened. "You just seemed uninterested." "Of course I never lie." "Okay, hold on tight," Fu said, and the wings behind her flapped happily, increasing her already swift speed even more. "Woof, I want to see if those Earthlings get a headache when they find out something's missing, too." "Ha ha ha." As they spoke, they had already flown out of the swamp. After a while, they saw Uzumaki Karin and the other two still heading north. Brother, Uzumaki Karin was the first to sense their presence behind her and turned around in surprise. Master, excited, Karin waved her hands hurriedly and said, "It's okay, it's okay." She looked at Suzumiya Musashi. "Where are you going to run now? If you don't run to the swamp, they'll catch you," Suzumiya Musashi said. "Take Haku and Tenten and run, while Karin and I run along the ground." Fu asked worriedly, "Can we catch them? There shouldn't be a problem." Chapter 211 Nobody Knows It's Us. Fu held Tenten and Bai in one hand each and flew through the sky, while Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin wasted their energy and ran along the ground like two wild boars, leaving two billowing trails of dust in their wake. After traveling for several hours, they stopped to rest. "Karin, how is it? Is the swamp still moving?" Uzumaki Karin calmed her breathing and released Kagura's mental perception. After a moment, she opened her eyes, moving happily, and said, "It seems to have stopped. The energy surge behind us has stopped." Suzumiya Musashi finally breathed a sigh of relief. "It's really uncomfortable being chased by a swamp." Musashi looked at her in surprise and said, "Don't rush it. Open it after you leave the Yellow Earth Forest." Suzumiya Musashi nodded naturally. "Where are you from?" Fu asked curiously during the rest. Uzumaki Karin unconsciously glanced at Suzumiya Musashi. "We're from Konoha." Suzumiya Musashi made no attempt to conceal his identity as a Konoha ninja. "Currently traveling the ninja world." "Traveling the ninja world," Fu's eyes lit up. "That sounds interesting, can you take me with you?" With that, he looked at Suzumiya Musashi expectantly. Suzumiya Musashi hesitated slightly. It wasn't that he didn't want to take him along. But he knew Fu's identity, a ninja from Tokigakure in the contemporary Jinchuriki of Shigeaki Nanao. Such an identity wasn't appropriate to have around, since you never know when the ninja of Tokigakure might come knocking. If his assumption was correct. No. He was certain. Fu must have secretly escaped. The people of Tokigakure would never allow a Jinchuriki to escape openly. Seeing that Suzumiya Musashi remained silent, Fu, who had been watching him expectantly, gradually grew despondent. "It's an inconvenience, forget it, I was just saying, who dares enter the Loess Forest?" he shouted furiously behind him. What followed was a vibration like that of an earth dragon rolling. Suzumiya Musashi and the others suddenly looked up and turned to look behind them. "Oh, no," Fu's expression changed. "The people of Iwagakure are chasing us." "Suzumiya Musashi, why did the Iwagakure catch up with us? Didn't we provoke them? The noise just now was so loud, how could you not notice?" Suzumiya Musashi asked, confused. "Aren't you afraid of the geomagnetic demon swamp?" Fu replied. "The Iwagakure Junin seem to have unique methods. As long as you don't get into trouble, the geomagnetic demon swamp won't attack you." As he spoke, Fu paced nervously. "It's over, it's over. This is a big problem. Let's run away as soon as possible." "Okay." Suzumiya Musashi couldn't help but ask, "Fu, you're not weak, why do you look so scared? Even if the other one is a Jonin, it wouldn't scare you that much, would it?" Fu said worriedly. "What do you know? If I let them find me, the village will know. Then it will cause even more trouble, and I'll be scolded until I die, at best." "What if?" Fu stopped. "If they discover your identity as a Jinchuriki, it could complicate things, right?" Suzumiya Musashi said. Fu Cyrillic lettered X. "You knew?" Fu was surprised. She thought the other party wouldn't recognize her. Then, her expression became complicated. Jinchuriki means she doesn't get along with ordinary people. Fimo and some Jonin from the village were friendly to her, but they weren't friends. At best, she was just protecting her own ninja and comrades. After her identity was discovered, her heart sank. "They should leave quickly, let's go our separate ways." "Why?" Suzumiya Musashi asked, surprised. Fu looked at him. "I'm the Jinchuriki, aren't you leaving?" Suzumiya Musashi, "What does this have to do with you being a Jinchuriki? Does it matter?" Fu was stunned. It's common sense that all ninjas know. When facing a Jinchuriki, you either seek their power or stay away. Few people would choose to be with a Jinchuriki. "But, no buts," Suzumiya Musashi interrupted Fu. "Isn't he just a ninja from Iwagakure? If it's not in your best interest to approach, I'll help you," Suzumiya Musashi said with a solemn oath. "Stay with Karin and the others and wait for me out there. I'll come after I've dealt with Iwagakure. They won't find out who snuck in." "You?" While Fu was still confused, Suzumiya Musashi had already left. Uzumaki Karen stepped forward, took her hand, and quickly left. As she ran, Fu looked back. A figure, its body enveloped in lightning and its face obscured, ran swiftly in the opposite direction. It collided with the approaching rumble. The next second, a roar echoed through the forest, and the birds and beasts scattered. Half an hour later, the cleaned hair gave off a burnt scent over the flames. In front of the campfire, Fu was still pacing anxiously. "Don't worry, brother, it's fine." Uzumaki Karen looked at her and comforted her. "No. I'm not worried," Fu said stubbornly. She was just a little anxious. After a few breaths, she suddenly turned her head, and with a rustling of grass and trees, a familiar figure appeared. It looked into her eyes. "Are you alright?" "Nothing's wrong," Suzumiya Musashi said matter-of-factly. "Two Jonin from Iwagaki are quite arrogant riding on earth dragons." After a friendly chat, they didn't discover who snuck in. "Don't worry, bye. Is the rabbit ready?" "I'm starving." In front of the campfire, Suzumiya Musashi was showing off the roasted rabbit. Bai was an expert cook. The rabbit was roasted to perfection, with just the right amount of salt. Its aroma filled your mouth with every bite. Seeing how delicious it was, Fu couldn't resist the temptation and tried a piece. Once he put it in his mouth, he couldn't stop. "It smells so good," Fu gave Bai a thumbs up. After eating, Suzumiya Musashi moved carefully to digest his meal. Fu asked, "Where are you going now?" "Continue north," Suzumiya Musashi said. "Go to the Mulao River and the rocky beach. Continue north, and you'll see the tallest mountain in the land of Earth, Mount Tenfu." Fu's eyes lit up at this. It seemed like it would be interesting. Among ninjas from other villages, you didn't have to go on any missions and could simply take some young people for a ride. Traveling the world. To Kigakure would never be like that. There was a strong longing in her eyes, but she hesitated for a moment and ultimately couldn't voice her thoughts. She was the Jinchuuriki everyone avoided, so how could the other party accept her following them? "Do you want to meet?" Chapter 212 I want to make a friend. A very common tone. It's like when a friend asks if you want a soda at home. Upon hearing this, Fu couldn't react for a moment, until his brain repeatedly confirmed that the sound he had heard was correct. The other person said, "Do you want to come with us?" "Can I?" Fu said with an expression of disbelief. Suzumiya Musashi looked at him strangely. "As you wish, just don't blame me if you get scolded." "Fu, but why?" "Suzumiya Musashi, why? Why don't you hate me? I'm the Jinchuuriki, even if you are Optimus Prime. What does that have to do with me?" Suzumiya Musashi asked. "Are you coming or not?" "Go, go, go. I'll go, and then I'll get scolded?" Fu smiled happily and said, "What's the problem, anyway? I snuck away, so I'm bound to get scolded. Of course I have to have fun." Suzumiya Musashi gave a thumbs up to the other person's brain circuit. "Good idea." Suzumiya Musashi agreed to go with them, and Fu was so excited she kept circling the campfire. "Right, let me introduce myself again. My name is Fu, from Takanin village. I want to make 100 friends as soon as possible." She looked at the 4 people in the field and asked excitedly, "Would you like to be my first, second, or 4th friend?" Shianshin, who had been listening intently to Fu's words, was stunned for a moment, then replied, "So you don't even have one friend, eh?" Fu stammered nervously. As she spoke, a hand grabbed her. Uzumaki Karen said, "I'll be your first friend." Fu looked up suddenly, her eyes wide with surprise. "Ah!" exclaimed Tenten. "Karen, you're quick, you got here first." She stood up, dusted herself off, walked over to Fu, and extended her hand. "My name is Shianshin, so I'll be your second friend." Squeezing both of their hands enthusiastically, Fu glanced at Suzumiya Musashi and Haku, who were standing beside her. If you two get together, I won't join." Fu's smile froze. "What a shame. I've lost a friend." She could only look at the last Bai. Bai hesitated and said, "Can I, too, of course, be my friend? Please?" Fu looked at Bai expectantly. Bai, a little skeptical, asked, "But, can boys do it?" Fu, after experiencing a series of emotional changes, including surprise, questioning, checking, surprise, and acceptance, Bai became Fu's 3rd friend. At Fu's impatient request, several people embarked on a new journey. "Shianshin, look, there's a rabbit over there. Should we catch it and roast it? I've heard that a rabbit's genitals grow behind its balls. I wonder if this rabbit is male or female." Karen, How about we have a race to see who can run the fastest? And what if the loser sings a song? Ah, there's a lake in front of us. How about we take a bath together? We can rub each other's backs. I've heard that good friends rub each other's backs, Uzumaki Karin said helplessly. PFFT, you can't bathe in a lake in the wild. Really? Then let's go to the village hot springs, that way we can have a nice bath. You can also play mahjong or cards. Bye, I have a lovely skirt, can I give it to you? Along the way, Fu chattered nonstop like a child on their first outing. The naive ideas that popped up from time to time gave all three of them a headache. Uzumaki Karin couldn't help but sigh. Fu, I think you look a lot like someone I know. Really? Who is it? Your friend? Fu asked curiously. Uzumaki Karin said, his name is Uzumaki Naruto, not friends, but almost. We spend a lot of time together. I think you two will get along well, she had a feeling. Fu and Uzumaki Naruto were definitely the same kind of people, with the same unconventional mindset, the same naivete, and an unbridled enthusiasm for friendship. However, when Uzumaki Naruto was around her, she always considered him too stupid, and every now and then she'd get the urge to teach him a lesson. She liked Fu a lot. At first, she had some reservations about him because of his identity as a ninja from Takegakure. However, after getting to know his lively and enthusiastic personality, she accepted him completely. Fu was definitely a very good friend. They got along very well. Even Suzumiya Musashi caught the other's enthusiasm and smiled a lot more. The only thing that bothered her was that Fu's outfit was too cool. She didn't know where he learned to dress like that. Other people's pants can only be to show off her mermaid lines, but Fu wants to show off her whole figure so that when Suzumiya Musashi accidentally looks at her, he'll always want to pick her up. 80. Bang. 80. Bang. 80. Noon. I practiced the next stage of my cultivation every day. I had recently completed the goal of 30 that Suzumiya Musashi had set for me, which compensated for the training task that the summoning beast granted me. The next goal that Suzumiya Musashi had set for me was to double my chakra reserves, and the reward was still a summoning beast. As long as Shianshin could complete the training goals I had set for myself, or complete the introduction to the Flying Thunder God technique, Suzumiya Musashi promised me a collection of summoning beasts of various types, whether flying or sea-based. Spurred on by the rewards, Shianshin's enthusiasm for practice was like a gush of chicken blood, and I couldn't stop. Shianshin, is this your daily practice routine? Fu crouched on the ground, resting his chin on both hands and observing Shianshin's practice. Yes, he practiced a Rasengan and said, Master, if you defeat me, as long as your chakra if it doubles, there will be a reward. The more you progress, the greater the reward. Fu pursed her lips. Did the amount of chakra require practice to increase? As a Jinchuriki of the tailed beasts, she had never experienced what it felt like to have insufficient chakra. Fu was feeling a little bored with the regular rhythm of performing the Rasengan every day, and even started to feel sleepy. After yawning, she decided to go see Uzumaki Karin. The other party's practice might be more interesting than Shianshin's. Chapter 213 Fu's Daily Friendship. While Shianshin's practice at least had some rhythm, Uzumaki Karin's was anything but entertaining. The movements were mechanically repeated, and sweat trickled down my cheeks. More boring than usual. Karin, what are you doing? Taijutsu training is meant to give me greater control over my body. Only when every muscle and energy in the body is under control can Taijutsu be effective, Fu said wearily, but it's so boring to watch. Uzumaki Karin, practicing is boring, isn't it? The boredom now is for the joy of the harvest. My brother said that training will not disappoint any ninja's efforts. Isn't your practice boring? Fu thought for a moment and said, Me? I'm fine. His training is different from Uzumaki Karin's. As a Jinchuriki, as long as he properly controls the chakra of the tailed beasts, he can easily obtain power unattainable for ordinary ninjas. After completing the last series of movements, Uzumaki Karin took a deep breath and approached Fu. My ninjutsu is rather boring. If you want to see something interesting, why don't you go find Tenten? Her two summoned beasts are quite interesting. Summoned beasts. Fu seemed to have discovered something interesting and led Uzumaki Karin to Tenten. Shianshin. I heard you have two psychic beasts. Can I take a look? Shianshin stopped what he was doing and asked, What's so great about psychic beasts? I haven't seen many, Fu pleaded. Let me see. Alright, then. Shianshin decided to satisfy Fu's curiosity. The art of spirit communication. Bang. A cloud of smoke rose. Hey, this is my summon beast, it's called Vulture, and it's the first psychic beast my master gave me. Shianshin introduced Fu to the ostrich and the mixed feathered vulture that had suddenly appeared. Wow, Fu's eyes widened in surprise. He looked around the vulture and exclaimed occasionally. Shianshin, your spirit beast looks so unique. Shianshin said, don't be fooled by its appearance, it's quite powerful. Not only can it fight, but it can also create a shadow clone. As they stared at each other, the vulture's cheeks twitched. It said, Shianshin, did you call me here just to show me around? I'm speechless every day. Fu sighed, it has a really bad temper. It's alright, Shianshin said, this one has a bad temper, but I have another one. As he spoke, he used his psychic powers once more. Bang, oh my god. Where is this? No. This is psychic communication. Shianshin, are there any enemies? Who do you want to fight? Jian Duofeng, with a tuft of blonde hair and standing over 30 centimeters tall, was summoned by the spirit for the first time. At first, he looked around in confusion. Upon discovering that it was Shianshin who had summoned him, he eagerly drew his weapon from behind him and searched for the enemy. I invited you out to play, it's so boring for you to stay in the windless valley all day. I made a new friend, you can meet him too. Really? Jian Duofeng was suddenly delighted. Shianshin, you're amazing, you even thought about taking me to play. We're just sparring, Shianshin said. By the way, Jian Duofeng, do you have any cool moves? Everyone's a bit bored, let's broaden our horizons. A cooler move? Jian Duofeng hesitated. The skills he had cultivated were all for fighting, and he never thought he would ever show them to others. Yes, Shianshin said immediately. My friends have heard that my summoned beast is super beautiful and powerful. Its moves are cool too, and everyone wants to see them. Really? I'm not like you said. Jian Duofeng suddenly blushed. Really? Shianshin has always told me that you're his best summoning beast and that he greatly admires your strength. Fu cooperated with Shianshin tactfully. Under the onslaught of flattery from the two, Jian Duofeng gradually began to lose his composure. After a while, the third performance began with enthusiasm, how to use wind escape to slice through a small hill in a minute. It should be mentioned that, although Komodo Kase may not seem very intelligent, his strength is undeniable. Once he used his wind escape technique, let alone Yan, even Fu felt that he was very powerful. After enjoying a lot of snacks that Yan and the others gave him, Jian Duofeng reluctantly decided to return. Before releasing the spiritual connection, he said to Yan, remember to come and play with me often. Yan nodded immediately. After Jian Duofeng left, Fu asked with a lingering feeling, Yan, do you have anything else to play with? Even an interesting spirit beast like Jian Duofeng would be fine. Yan shook his head and said, no more. I only have 2 summoning beasts now. As for ninjutsu, I don't know any others. Do you have any fun tricks? Fu thought about it. All my methods use the power of tailed beasts. By the way, I have a ninjutsu that can paralyze the enemy. Can I use it for you? Never mind. Tenten and Uzumaki Karen hurriedly stopped them. Fu was interested in everything she'd never seen before, but they were different. By the way, Fu, I remember you can grow a pair of wings on your back, Uzumaki Karen said suddenly. Yes, to use the power of the tailed beast. I'll teach you how to use it, okay, of course. As she spoke, a surge of chakra fluctuations appeared in Fu's body. Fu turned her back to them, lifted her shirt, and revealed the smooth, slender curve of her back. She deliberately slowed her pace, and 2 halos lit up at Fu's waist. Then, a pair of thin, transparent wings with a faint fluorescent glow slowly unfurled. Wow, Uzumaki Karen and Tenten exclaimed, how beautiful. Shianshin felt a pang of envy. She wanted a pair of wings too. Wings like these, not only would they look beautiful, but they could also fly. He couldn't stand it any longer and reminded him with an embarrassed look. Don't you see there are 2 men here? Girls gathered together, it's a real headache. Fu heard their movements and, unaware that her actions were inappropriate, asked, Musashi, do you have any interesting ninjutsu? Musashi was stunned. Nonsense, ninjutsu isn't for fun, Shianshin said. Master, let us have a look, just this once. Uzumaki Karen and Fu also looked at him expectantly. Suzumiya Musashi said, my ninjutsu is only for fighting, where can I find fun ninjutsu? Several pouted in disappointment, especially Fu, whose disappointment was even more obvious. Suzumiya Musashi thought for a moment and said, I don't have any fun ninjutsu, but I do know a little trick to change my hairstyle. Fu's eyes lit up and he jumped up. Let me see. Let me see. Chapter 214 Konohamaru's Talk. Suzumiya Musashi was gathering chakra. As strands of chakra erupted from his body, carrying tiny sparks of electricity, under the expectant gaze of Fu and the others, the next instant, Suzumiya Musashi's hair suddenly exploded. All his hair stood on end like steel needles, and his short, neat hair suddenly transformed into a ragged afro. Shianchan, is this the trick you mentioned? Uzumaki Karin didn't react much, but Fu just kept laughing. Ha 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 Musashi, you look like a giant hedgehog. Ha ha ha, Uzumaki Karin, brother, when did you learn such a strange move? Suzumiya Musashi explained, it was when I started training. I originally wanted to try the lightning technique to stimulate my body, but the properties of chakra weren't perfect at the time. Once I used it, it became like this. Fu approached. Really, let me try. As he spoke, he extended a hand. Under the latter's expectant gaze, Suzumiya Musashi extended a finger, gathered the chakra that had just condensed in his fingertips, and gently touched it. Zilal with a faint crackle of electricity, Fu's hair instantly transformed into an afro. The round, green hair was even more comical than Suzumiya Musashi's. However, none of those present burst into laughter. Just as the lightning chakra flowed and became a large afro, Fu emitted an endearing tremor. Ah, Suzumiya Musashi, Cyrillic letter Dek, Shianchan and Bai, Greek letter Sigma, degree, the mountain breeze blew, and the atmosphere became a little awkward. A few seconds later, Uzumaki Karin approached. I want to play too, get lost. Oh next, remember what are the characteristics of wind chakra? Does it change nature? Aoi, answer this question. Sunflower, Konoha Ninja Academy. As the teacher's face on the podium gradually darkened, Uchiha Aoi, distracted, realized the teacher was asking her questions when she remembered her desk mate. Teacher, could you repeat the question, please? If it were any other student, the teacher would have sent them off to develop their career long ago. However, it was Uchiha Aoi, a good student who had always been at the top of the class. The chunin on the podium could only say helplessly, let me ask you, what are the characteristics of changes in wind chakra nature? Oh. Uchiha Aoi heard the question clearly and answered directly, the nature of wind chakra changes, and it is sharp and fast. Okay, sit down. The chunin teacher's expression improved greatly. Aoi, go home and get some rest. You still need to stay focused in class. I understand, Professor. At that moment, an inappropriate voice rang out from the back row. Professor. She was clearly distracted. You didn't even let her stand outside. You're biased. Uchiha Aoi suddenly turned her head and glared at the speaker with piercing eyes, the most nervous and annoying classmate, Konohamaru. Noticing Uchiha Aoi's glare, Konohamaru unconsciously flinched. He was a little afraid to look him directly in the eyes and continued to stare at the professor on the stage. Well. Aoi must be really tired from studying all night. That's understandable, Konohamaru said dissatisfiedly. Master, the last time I got distracted, wasn't that what you said? Bang! Throwing the textbook onto the desk, the chunin master shouted, Konohamaru, you still have the nerve to say that? Aoi-san can know the answer to a question even when she's. And you, I asked you 10 times, can you answer too? Konohamaru looked at his collar but still refused to accept the answer. Master, I'm not talking about whether I can answer the question or not. I'm talking about the problem of getting distracted in class. Does getting good grades mean you can do whatever you want? That's right, the chunin master nodded. If you get good grades, you can do whatever you want, Konohamaru. He wanted to say something else, but faced with a murderous Uchiha Aoi and the teacher's rising anger, he finally decided to follow his heart. Let's leave it at that for now, he muttered under his breath. But he didn't expect revenge to come any sooner than he imagined. That afternoon, during physical training class, Konohamaru was about to show off his skills so his classmates could see the results of their recent intensive training when a familiar voice suddenly rang out. Master! I want to challenge Konohamaru, is that alright with you? Hearing Uchiha Aoi's voice, Konohamaru's eyes widened, and he lost his composure. No, of course, the teacher readily agreed to the top student's request. It's rare for Aoi to be so serious. In this case, let the students see your level. I will, Uchiha Aoi said very seriously. She walked to the center of the grounds and looked at Konohamaru, who was struggling to hold back. Shall we? What are you waiting for? Are you scared? Scared? What a joke. Konohamaru exclaimed loudly, I am the great Konohamaru, I just don't want to fight a girl. Uchiha Aoi, too lazy to waste time talking, unilaterally formed the opposition seal and adopted an offensive stance. There was murderous intent in her eyes. Don't treat me like a girl, just treat me like an enemy, Konohamaru. That? Aoi, I think my actions this morning were a bit excessive. I wonder if you can accept my belated apology. 3. Sure, it doesn't matter if you don't accept it. I just want to express my feelings. We're classmates, and I shouldn't tell the teacher about my distraction. 2. Hey, what are you doing? Let me tell you, I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of myself. I'm scared of myself when I fight. You'd better think about that. There are so many girls in the class. Why do you have to fight me? 1. Chapter 215 Konohamaru, now I regret it. Swoosh, Uchiha Aoi clenched his hands like knives and, with swift movements, lunged at Konohamaru like a gust of wind. A knife strike missed its mark, and Konohamaru panicked and dodged it. With a whip-like kick, Konohamaru launched himself to the ground and leaped. Konohamaru's abdomen ripped open. A direct punch. Bang! The fabric on Konohamaru's back bulged slightly. His hands felt refreshed. Konohamaru lay on the ground, his gaze blank, muttering, damn it, what are you talking about? Uchiha Aoi suddenly turned around. Konohamaru was so frightened that he squirmed and took a few steps back. Thinking that he, a prominent figure of Konoha's new generation, was being trampled on by a woman, Konohamaru steeled himself and suppressed the fear in his heart. He lay down on the ground and spoke with determination, Uchiha Aoi, one day I will surpass you and defeat you. Really? Uchiha Aoi said uncompromisingly, I'm waiting for that day, don't take too long. I won't be able to see it when I'm old and dead. Konohamaru was furious. HMPH. I'm no match for you now, but one day I'll regain my lost dignity, just you wait. After I graduate and become a disciple of a famous master, I'll learn powerful ninjutsu. I'll surely make you regret your arrogance today. Konohamaru, standing, looked at his defeated opponent. That won't happen someday. When I graduate, I'll train with my brother. You'll never catch up to me. Konohamaru glared at her angrily, wanting to say something harsh, but he was afraid she'd react. He had no strength left to resist. Uchiha Aoi did nothing. She looked at him with disdain and turned away. Remember how he feels now. This kind of failure and powerlessness will haunt you for the rest of your life. Konohamaru, Van, how was your day at school? During dinner, Uchiha Izumi asked Aoi about her school life. Very good, my classmates are very kind. Uchiha Aoi took a sip of hot soup and continued, I treat them the same way. That's good. They might be your classmates in the future, so you should get along with them now. Don't worry, sister. We get along very well. Uchiha Aoi didn't want to talk about it, so she changed the subject and said, Sister, when is my brother coming back? It's been a while, hasn't it? Uchiha Izumi was stunned. Yes, more than half a year. Will my brother be back soon? He said softly. My sister doesn't know either. When that guy left, he didn't say how long it had been. Uchiha Aoi sighed deeply at this. Uchiha Izumi comforted him, don't dwell on it. Your task now is to study hard and graduate successfully. After you graduate, you'll have more time. After washing the dishes, Uchiha Izumi went out into the hallway alone, leaning against the wall, gazing at the streets of Konoha. It was just after dinner time, and villagers were strolling in groups of 3 or 4 along the street. Shop lights reflected in the windows, and every time a door opened, the sounds from inside could be heard. Springtime for fun. Judging by the other group's past habits, at that time, you should practice without distractions. 3. Excuse me Suzumiya Musashi, you're useless. You've lost again. By the campfire, Suzumiya Musashi lowered his head and let Fu breathe fresh air into him. He realized his gambling luck couldn't get any worse. The fact that he always lost to Tsunade could be explained as a coincidence. Perhaps Tsunade herself was a bit eccentric and suppressed her gambling luck. But now, in front of Fu and the other 4, he was still losing miserably. Quick, dealer, shuffle the cards. I want to play more. I don't want to play any more. Suzumiya Musashi randomly threw the cards from his hand down. If I ever play cards again, I'll be a dog. I'm saying it today. From now on, I will never reconcile with gambling and drugs. Well, if you lose, you lose. Don't be stubborn, Uzumaki Karan bluntly put it. Suzumiya Musashi. Without Suzumiya Musashi's participation, the others lost interest in playing and went to bed early the next day. After a long journey, they finally arrived at the last destination on Earth, Mount Shianfu. Mount Shianfu, the tallest mountain on Earth, overlooks the sea to the north and overlooks the mountains to the south. It has always been one of Earth's spiritual symbols. However, compared to the geomagnetic demon swamp, Mount Shianfu has no other distinguishing features than its height, so it is sparsely populated. Several people watched from afar as the mountain rose toward the sky and couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. Suzumiya Musashi, alright, today's goal is to climb Mount Damatsu, Karin, we have to get to the top already. Uzumaki Karin looked at the nearby peak and felt that this goal was nothing special. Fine, it's just climbing a mountain, a piece of cake. Uzumaki Karin traveled light, while Suzumiya Musashi carried a special weight. Upon releasing chakra, a misty halo appeared on the special weight, and it became extremely heavy. After a simple warm-up, Suzumiya Musashi called out softly, "Let's go." 2 plumes of smoke and dust drifted away. Fu looked at Shianchan, "What do we do? Do we have to run up too, up the mountain?" Uzumaki Karin couldn't be outdone. Half an hour later, seeing Mount Shianfu in front of him, which seemed to have remained unchanged in size, Shianchan was completely desperate. It didn't seem far, but running was really difficult. In just half an hour, he already felt like his legs no longer belonged to him. Returned to the village alive, Shianchan resigned himself to his fate and gave up. Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin had already disappeared. If this trend continued, he could die here without anyone noticing. Finally, Fu grabbed one in each hand and flew upwards. Chapter 216 The Persistence of Two People. Hochihachi. 2 hours later, at the foot of Mount Tenfu, Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin arrived one after the other. Looking toward the summit of Mount Shianfu, the mountain that had been visible before now only revealed a slope rising through the clouds. As for the summit itself, a light cloud had obscured it. Suzumiya Musashi looked at Uzumaki Karin behind him and said, "Let's see if you can hold out." Uzumaki Karin replied, "Of course, alright, let's climb." Mount Tenfu is very high, but the slope wasn't steep. Even ordinary people could attempt to climb it. For a ninja like Suzumiya Musashi, it was no problem. What truly challenged him was the mountain's height. Although the incline wasn't steep, once the altitude reached a certain level, it became a long ordeal. Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin climbed with determination, and after another 2 hours, they stopped to rest for a while. "Karin, how are you?" Uzumaki Karin calmed her breathing, allowing her chest, which felt like it was about to burst, to slowly recover. She raised her head, but the mountain peak was still not in sight. Looking down, it seemed she had only climbed less than a third of the way. Doubts crept in. Can I really make it to the top? She wasn't sure either. Seeing Suzumiya Musashi's worried expression, she buried her doubts in her heart and shook her head. "I'm fine, just take a break." They both pulled out ration pills and water bottles to replenish their strength. After a few minutes, the energy in their bodies slowly returned. With the blessing of the Uzumaki clan's physicist, Uzumaki Karin recovered quickly. Before long, her strength flooded back. "I can do it." Suzumiya Musashi wasted no time. "Let's go." 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. The path ahead seemed endless. After crossing one steep slope, the next one appeared. After a stretch of gravel, the next one arrived. Suzumiya Musashi continued climbing. Sweat soaked his clothes, and his shoes landed on the rocks, leaving clear footprints. His physical strength was rapidly waning, and the muscles throughout his body emitted familiar groans. His gaze remained steady. It was only a matter of hurrying along the path. On this path, there are no enemies or traps, the only difficulty is himself. So, what are you afraid of? There's no need to hesitate, no need to think. He climbed step by step, like the path he had traveled throughout the years. His physical strength was diminishing. Without unlocking the yin seal, he felt he had already reached his limit. The bottleneck in his body, on the verge of collapse, caused him to hallucinate. There was no gold, silver, or jewels, no beautiful women. Yes, he was the 4-year-old boy trying to survive in the ninja world. He saw ferocious beasts among the thorns and passers-by who drew their swords to vent their anger. He saw the dazzling recruitment order of Project Ioba and the piercing gaze of Saratobi Hirozen. Climb. Keep climbing. He saw enemies roaring and brandishing kunai on the battlefield. He saw Uchiha imprisoned in the jar. He saw Danzo with cold eyes. One by one, some faces cold and others crazed paraded before his eyes. Suzumiya Musashi endured the fishy, sweet taste in his chest and continued walking upward. It's all an illusion. The ninja world. But it's only an illusion. In his heart, there are only a chorus and others. Behind him, there was only Uzumaki Karin. Suddenly, 6 hours had passed since they left the foot of the mountain. During these 6 hours, the two replenished their water and food several times. When they looked up, they could already vaguely see the mountain's peak. But I can't see beneath my feet. Suzumiya Musashi calculated that they had already climbed about 2/3 of the way, with less than a third remaining, or perhaps even less. Every now and then, Suzumiya Musashi turned around and checked on Uzumaki Karin to make sure she wasn't hurting herself trying to show off her strength. That was his only concern. How are you feeling? Can you still hold on? After crossing a steep slope, Suzumiya Musashi turned and asked. Uzumaki Karin hunched over and gasped. Her face was very pale. Her strength had been depleted many times before. Even the Uzumaki clan's physique has its limits, and now she felt she had reached hers. Even using Benlian pills to replenish her strength, the recovery rate was much slower than before. Hachi. Her heavy breathing didn't calm down for a long time. Uzumaki Karin really wanted to tell Suzumiya Musashi the truth. I'm already exhausted, even with the Benlian pills, I can't endure any longer. What do you think of this? Uzumaki Karin wanted to speak the words that lingered in her mind several times, but she felt unable to. Looking at Suzumiya Musashi, whose face was pale and the blood at the corner of his mouth was still visible, even after being surreptitiously wiped away, she couldn't say anything. The Uzumaki clan's keen perception allowed her to easily understand Suzumiya Musashi's physical condition. The other's condition was even worse than her own. Instead of straining his body, it would be more accurate to say that the other was straining his spirit. His physical strength was greatly depleted, and his chakra was exhausted. Starting from the mountainside, the opponent had relied on his perseverance to endure. And all this because of the weight on the other. It has its limits. Human willpower has its limits too. But why was Suzumiya Musashi acting as if there were no limits? The 8 gates of ninjutsu were clearly not activated. Why? Because you can transcend the limits of the human body. With his consciousness slightly clouded, he could only see a pair of eyes. Eyes gazed at him with concern, as if contemplating his most precious treasure. I'm fine, don't push yourself, Suzumiya Musashi said with a serious expression. I'm truly fine, Uzumaki Karin said with all his might. If my body can't take any more, I'll tell you. Even after saying that, Suzumiya Musashi remained worried. He walked forward and used his limited chakra to check on Uzumaki Karin's condition. He was relieved to find that he had no injuries. If you can't endure it, stop, okay, he emphasized again. Uzumaki Karin nodded. Only then did Suzumiya Musashi set off again. Looking back at him, Uzumaki Karin had a complex expression. Perhaps he had guessed, or perhaps he never guessed why Suzumiya Musashi was so persistent. She only knew that she didn't want to stop. Just like the reason she set out to learn the 8 gates ninjutsu. I don't want to be a burden to you forever. I don't want to always look up to you. I want to become stronger. I want to be by your side, or at least follow you. Since I chose the path of physical training, how could I give up? I want to share the pain and suffering you endure. Because of your persistence, so I want to persist with you too, fainting, otherwise, you'll never be able to eat your brother. Secretly encouraging herself, Uzumaki Karin gritted her teeth and followed Suzumiya Musashi's lead once more. 2 figures, one large and one small, one in front and one behind, their footprints overlapping. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Karin's Dream Material +1. I don't know how much time has passed. Uzumaki Karin felt as though the path ahead seemed endless. It seems nice to walk with my brother on an endless path. She didn't want to fall, so she unconsciously reached out her hands. It was as if she had caught a piece. There was a familiar and tempting scent at the tip of her nose. Without a word, she took his hand and moved forward slowly. The light flickered, and the life force in her body rose and fell like a stubborn firefly. Uzumaki Karen had no idea where she was or how high the path was. She only knew that as long as that hand held her, she was willing to die. Karen, we're here, Karen, we're here, have you arrived yet? Uzumaki Karen asked softly. Well, we're here, Suzumiya Musashi repeated. He held Uzumaki Karen, straightened up, and looked around. Light clouds and a clear blue sky. Looking south, the mountains are green and majestic. Looking north, the sea is vast and endless. Karen's eyes. She looked around at the vast world and couldn't help but feel excited, an inexplicable pride filling her heart. Suzumiya Musashi, did you feel it? Uzumaki Karen, what? Suzumiya Musashi, I did, you did. He looked at Uzumaki Karen, his eyes filled with relief and pride. Climbing a mountain is nothing, go ahead, your taijutsu training will enter a new stage, the 8 Gates ninjutsu will open a whole new world for you. Uzumaki Karen felt it. After the ultimate training, every part of her body expressed submission to her master. Her exhausted spirit overflowed with strength, surging forth. She also felt the indescribable love that Suzumiya Musashi felt for her. Strong emotions are building in my heart, and I cannot express them. In the ninja world, the strongest ninja of the future embarks on her journey on this peaceful day. Uzumaki Karen, meanwhile, stared intently, vividly recalling the scene before her. In the perfect world, Suzumiya Musashi, clad in golden light, stands before our eyes. This image will haunt her dreams for the rest of her life. Ha ha ha. They're so fast. I can barely outrun you with 2 of them. The idyllic atmosphere lasted only a few minutes before being shattered by a sudden voice. Uzumaki Karen swore this was the first time she'd ever hated Fu's presence after all the days she and Fu had been so close. How are you? Are you tired? Fu sat by and Anshin down, walked over, and handed them 2 bags of snacks. Hey, my secret love energy lunchbox can quickly relieve your fatigue. Uzumaki Karen, thanks, what can I do? He gave me a love energy lunchbox. Why should we be so polite? Fu said, handing a package to Suzumiya Musashi. Hey, you get one too, even if you don't become my 4th friend, I'm still a very generous person. Thanks. Suzumiya Musashi took the lunchbox. He really needed to replenish his energy. Every cell in his body felt like it was starving, which drove him to eat quickly. Opening the bento, Suzumiya Musashi ate ravenously, but nearly choked on a loud scream in his ear. Ah, cough, cough, cough. You're going to scare me to death, Suzumiya Musashi said, rolling his eyes. Fu didn't answer, but instead gazed at the scenery with a smile. With such a magnificent view, of course we should do something. It's so much fun to shout it out, you can try it too. Suzumiya Musashi refused. Karen, Tenten, do you want to try it? Try it, it feels great. Before Uzumaki Karen could make up her mind, Tenten excitedly approached, her hands pressed around her mouth. Ah, someday I'll become a great kunoichi like Tsunade. Fu, you're right, it really does feel good. Bye, are you coming? Bye, ah, bye, ye shouted once, and then there was no movement. Is she gone? Too short. Karen, what about you? Uzumaki Karen shook her head. I just ate, so I won't shout anymore. The emotions of that moment took her a while to digest. Oh, okay, just scream, urged on by Fu. Uzumaki Karen had no choice but to follow suit and covered her mouth with her hands. Ah, 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 several people screamed at once. Harmony filled the skies. At the mountain peaks, there were no echoes or birds, only the harmony of the sky and the blue sea. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Several people laughed merrily. Gradually, Fu's smile faded. She tore her gaze from the scenery and looked at her companions, slowly lowering her eyes. Uzumaki Karen and the others also fell silent. According to the plan, they would cross the sea with Suzumiya Musashi. Fu couldn't follow them. As the Jinchuriki of Tokigakure, she had already gone to the extreme of secretly running away and going insane. If she didn't return, Tokigakure would likely descend into chaos. Fu, Uzumaki Karen wanted to say. Although they spent little time together, the days they spent with Fu were very happy. Besides, they should be treated as friends. Ninjas like Fu, simple, enthusiastic, and even a little naive, are simply an endangered species in the ninja world. That's why there are more oddballs like him in Konoha. Shianshin and Baiyi seemed reluctant. Oh. What are you doing? Fu asked, suppressing her sadness and comforting them. It's not like we'll never see each other again, right? Who can stop you then? Fu Xianshan's eyes reddened even more at her words. Karin, you also need to practice a lot, but be careful not to become a muscular woman, or you won't be able to find a boyfriend. And Shiro, stop being so shy. Although introverted guys are cute, they're not good at finding girlfriends. I'll remember that, Bai agreed. Although she has no plans to look for a girlfriend. Chapter 218, Farewell. Fu, do you want to be my fourth friend? Fu continued, you should be happier, these days with you are the happiest of my life, Xianshan. Fu, you must be happy every day of the future. Fu, woo-woo, finally, he couldn't hold it in any longer. I'm sure I'll be bored to death woo-woo. 3. Hey, hold it in, hold it in. Suzumiya Musashi hurriedly stopped the few people who were performing a quartet. He felt bad, but it seemed the environment wasn't conducive to crying on a mountain top. Fu wiped away his tears and whispered, don't worry, we'll practice hard and become stronger. We'll meet again someday. Musashi felt even more complicated. According to the development of the original work, Akatsuki will gradually implement a plan to gather all the tailed beasts. The Jinchuriki of each major ninja village will be gradually eliminated, and Fu, naturally, won't be spared. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, this should be the last time Uzumaki Karin and the others encounter Fu. Fu didn't know this. But even without Akatsuki's plan, as a Jinchuriki, it would be highly unusual for him to have contact with other ninja villages. Given the frequency of previous World Ninja Wars, the opportunity would be many years away. By the way, I also prepared some small gifts for you. Fu suddenly remembered something, took a few things out of his bag, and handed them to Uzumaki Karin and the other two. In his hands were 3 oval-shaped objects, about the size of ping-pong balls and of different colors. What is this? Is it so beautiful? Fu asked. These are the insect eggs that Chongming and I collected. When you return, you can incubate them in a suitable place. By then, there will be colorful butterflies larger than the palm of your hand, which will be very beautiful. Thank you, Fu. The 3 carefully put away the insect eggs. Then, Xianshan took out his treasure scroll, and as he performed the summoning technique, a weapon appeared before his eyes. He took the beautifully decorated whip and handed it to Fu. This is a long whip from my collection, I'm giving it to you. Master said your original whip broke because you were saving someone. I hope you can use it easily. Fu took the whip with a joyful expression on his face. Thank you, Tenten. I like it very much. Then, Bai gave Fu an exquisite sunbun. Uzumaki Karin had nothing to give, so after thinking for a while, she took out a scroll. This is the fire sealing scroll my brother gave me. If you encounter an enemy, you can open it from the front, and a piece of black flame will appear to attack them. But be careful not to hurt yourself. Tenten, who was there, saw the fire sealing scroll and looked at Suzumiya Musashi with puzzlement. If she remembered correctly, her beloved master had once told her that the scroll she had been given was the last one. What's going on in front of me? Suzumiya Musashi looked away, pretending not to see Tenten's eyes. Musashi, Suzumiya Musashi turned his head when he heard Fu calling him. But then Fu took a gunpowder black insect egg out of his bag and handed it to him. For me, Fu nodded and said, yes, although, you didn't agree to be my fourth friend, but even if we can only be friends for a few days, I can't deny you. Suzumiya Musashi took the insect egg and he asked, what can be born from this? Fu, this can be born, a black hedgehog. It's round and not very pretty, but it looks a lot like the afro you had that day, ha ha ha. Suzumiya Musashi sighed to himself. He took something from his arms and handed it to Fu. Fu stared in amazement at what he held in his hand. It was a round crystal ball, smaller than a fist. The difference was that it had fine black lines around it. If you looked closely, you could see runic markings similar to sealing techniques. Through the black lines, inside the crystal ball, was a golden sphere like an egg yolk. Harvested from the geomagnetic magic swamp, the golden liquid of the golden pond. Fu said happily, how did you manage to seal it in the crystal ball, Suzumiya Musashi? First do that, then that, that's all. Fu took it with a smile. Is this my gift? How beautiful. Suzumiya Musashi was silent for a moment and then said, it's not really a gift, I promised you earlier. You saved me, and whoever sees it will get a share. Fu chuckled. Anyway, thanks. I really like it, just think of it as a gift from you. Suzumiya Musashi fell silent again. He watched with delight as Fu played with the crystal ball, and the reluctant looks on Uzumaki Karin and Tenten's faces. Regardless of him, The little ones obviously considered Fu a good friend. Wait a minute, actually, after thinking about it, I decided to give you a proper gift, or I'll seem stingy, huh? Fu asked, surprised. This crystal ball is great, I like it very much. Sharing the loot is sharing the loot, and gifts are gifts, Suzumiya Musashi said without further delay. Since he had already made up his mind, he didn't care much. After arriving in the ninja world, he had caused enough trouble, not one more. For the sake of Uzumaki Karen and Tenten. To the surprise of several, Suzumiya Musashi took out a scroll, slowly unfolded it, and held it out in front of Fu. Well, consider this my gift. Fu looked at the scroll and asked uncertainly, is this a spirit contract? Uzumaki Karen and Tenten looked at Suzumiya Musashi in surprise. They didn't understand why the other party had come up with such a strange gift. In the village, after signing the psychic contract with a ninja dog clan, you can bring a small ninja dog to keep you entertained and prevent boredom. Don't be fooled by its lack of combat skills. Suzumiya Musashi gestured with his strength is growing, and his ability to earn money hasn't slowed. The ninja dog clan's attitude toward him has changed. As long as it's not a suicide mission, the ninja dog clan is willing to cooperate with him more. Of course, keeping him company and entertaining someone counts too. Seeing the puzzled looks on Uzumaki Karen and Tenten's faces, Suzumiya Musashi knew their reasons were a bit far-fetched, but he had no intention of explaining them. If it weren't for you two, do you think I would give you such a precious gift? Seeing that Fu was still hesitating, Suzumiya Musashi asked, do you want this gift? If you don't sign, I'll keep it. After signing the contract in a flash, he finally voiced his thoughts tentatively. Oh, Musashi, we both gave each other gifts, so are we friends now? Oh, I don't mean anything more than that. Fu's eyes flickered. I was just asking casually, you know, my quota of friends is very valuable. If you don't agree, my fourth quota of friends could run out in a few days. Chapter 219 Bottleneck. Okay, stop messing around, I'll just be your fourth friend. Fu instantly turned his head and glared at Suzumiya Musashi. Really, do I have to lie to you? Suzumiya Musashi rolled his eyes. But it's a good deal. There's one condition to being my friend. You must carry a ninja dog with you, so the others know you're my friend. Seeing the increasingly puzzled looks from the others, he said, sure, I just said it. It's up to you whether you do it or not, no problem. If I go blind in the future, you can say my name while holding the ninja dog. I guarantee everything will be fine. Okay, Fu, don't listen to his nonsense. He's just joking. Uzumaki Karen, who thought Suzumiya Musashi was just getting a bad taste in his mouth, couldn't stand it anymore and stopped Fu, who was listening intently. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's take a picture together while it's still dark. That night, several girls chatted non-stop. The next morning, Fu said goodbye to some people and watched as Uzumaki Karen and others boarded a boat heading north. Until the boat gradually became a black dot in the distance and finally disappeared over the horizon. Fu sat on the ground, holding her chin in both hands, staring blankly, completely lost. Like a sad, confused, and helpless little animal. Again, Tony, the psychic ninja dog Fu had summoned, said indifferently, how am I supposed to know? Maybe in a few days, maybe in a few years. By the way, I'm hungry. When can you take me out for dog food? Fu sighed, eat. Only you know how to eat. Sooner or later you'll turn into fat, black man. What's wrong with eating? I'm telling you, don't take advantage of me. Well, I'll take you to get some dog food later, Peter asked, confused, in a little while? Why not now? Just as he finished speaking, he felt a powerful aura drawing ever closer and looked to the east as if he had sensed something. I saw a small black dot growing larger and larger. Tony said, someone's coming. Fu said dejectedly, I know, it's the chief of my village. Fimo, you're going to die. You're going to behave pathetically again. As he spoke, the person approached at lightning speed. Before he arrived, furious voices were heard in the distance. Fu, you've gotten bolder, haven't you? You ran away for so long without even saying hello. Fu immediately sped up. By the time Fimo, wearing a red scarf, ran towards her, her eyes were already filled with tears. Fu. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Woof. As soon as Fimo finished speaking, Fu burst into tears. Fu, Fimo was surprised. What's wrong? Who have you been with these past few days? Do you know how worried the villagers are about you? Fu, they've left. Woof. Fimo was horrified. Are you really with someone else? Do you know that your identity is special and it's very dangerous to be with someone whose origins you don't know? Fu whispered. What danger? They've all left. Famo finally breathed a sigh of relief. Whatever happened, as long as Fu was safe, everything would be alright. Only then did he notice Tony standing next to Fu. Where did this dog come from? I picked him up. Fu's gaze was vague. You really worry me, Months. I know, Fu nodded sadly. There was a sly glint in his eyes. Aren't you not allowed to go out? I expected as much. Well, don't wait any longer. If you feel tired, go to the cabin and rest. On the ship, Suzumiya Musashi was explaining his training experience to Uzumaki Karin and Tenten. Seeing them nodding and dozing with dark circles under their eyes, he knew they had talked all night and hadn't slept, so he could only let them go to bed first. Going to bed and waking up early, and staying energized, were his requirements for practice. However, last night's situation was special, so he turned a blind eye. Uzumaki Karin and Tenten felt forgiven and dragged themselves back to the cabin to catch up on sleep. This is just the first time. It won't happen again. Suzumiya Musashi's voice sounded from outside the cabin. Also, after waking up, the intensity of your training will double. The two weren't in the mood to worry about what would happen upon waking. The moment their heads touched the pillow, they fainted. Hearing the steady sound of breathing coming from the cabin, Suzumiya Musashi shook his head and focused on his own practice. There was only steaming water vapor. In that environment, Suzumiya Musashi began to study water-style ninjutsu. The water attribute was one of the ninjutsu attributes he was least skilled at, along with the earth attribute. In previous training sessions, he hadn't developed much water ninjutsu, and its application and practice was even less. An environment like the sea was very suitable for him to improve his water ninjutsu. He couldn't neglect his daily physical training, and he dedicated time to guiding the two children in their training. The rest of his time was devoted to practicing water ninjutsu and perceiving the attributes of water. In the vast sea, the days seemed to pass more quickly. As time went on, Suzumiya Musashi's water ninjutsu slowly improved. Although the speed wasn't as rapid as that of wind, thunder, and fire jutsu, it was still a steady improvement. What truly puzzled him was the research and exploration of chakra properties. Water, as one of the most common elements, exists everywhere from the moment we are born. There is water in our bodies and in what we eat and drink. Now that we are in the vast ocean, water is infinite. Too stable, or perhaps my talent for water ninjutsu is too ordinary. 3 months passed in an instant, and I mastered much water ninjutsu, but my research on chakra remained slow. No way? This is the ocean. If I can't find any clues about the water element here, where else can I go? Suzumiya Musashi began to worry. Brother, there's an island ahead. At that moment, Uzumaki Karin suddenly stood up from the deck and excitedly pointed at a black dot in the distance. Suzumiya Musashi looked up and saw the island far away. As the ship drew closer, its outline gradually became clear. Uzumaki Karin, this island is quite large. Brother, shall we rest here for a while, repair? The other suggested. He didn't want to eat fish either. Chapter 220, The Magic of the Dampone Forest. After securing the boat to the rocks by the sea, Suzumiya Musashi and a few others temporarily settled on the isolated island. His research into water attribute chakra had stalled, so he planned to put it aside for the time being and relax. Bang! As he performed the summoning technique, a medium-sized slug appeared in front of Suzumiya Musashi. Musashi-kun, what do you want to ask me? The slug noticed the lack of a fighting atmosphere and asked, confused. Suzumiya Musashi said, Slug, there's something I want to discuss with you. What is it? I'll do my best as long as I can. Suzumiya Musashi scratched his head. He was still a little uncomfortable with the slug's soft voice and manner of speaking. They both had their own ways of practicing immortal arts. As one of the 3 sacred places, the Dampone Forest should also have its own way of practicing, right? Magic? Asked the slug. Is this the method Hashirama-sama learned? No problem, said Suzumiya Musashi with a delighted expression. Did Hashirama Senju really achieve sage mode in the Forest of Dampones? Yes, Musashi-kun, do you want to practice this technique too? Asked his wish. You taught it to me, slug, please. The slug's 2 tentacled eyes curved, and he smiled sweetly. Musashi-kun, you're too polite. There's no problem in learning immortal arts. However, whether you can master the immortal arts depends on you. Hearing this, Suzumiya Musashi asked, "Is it difficult to practice the immortal arts?" As far as he could recall, Jiraiya and Uzumaki Naruto, the two last ones, hadn't dedicated much time to learning the celestial arts. Therefore, he couldn't judge how difficult it was to practice them. There weren't many people in the world who could master the celestial mode. It was difficult to determine whether this was due to lack of talent or because the Holy Land had a monopoly and there were no resources or channels for practice. The slug explained, "Musashi-kun, the three sacred places do have the conditions for transmitting the immortal arts, but the methods and difficulty of practicing them are different. Among the three sacred places, relatively speaking, the immortal arts of Long Decave are the easiest to practice. However, because the inheritance of the immortal arts is simple and rudimentary, the practitioners themselves will be affected by Long Decave. What manifests is that whoever summons it will have the appearance of the Long Decave serpent, including, among other things, pupils, eyeshadow, scales, and a serpent's tail. This method for inheriting the immortal arts doesn't require such demanding talent. As long as you keep trying, the probability of success remains very high," Suzumiya Musashi interrupted, "and if it doesn't work, slug, they'll eat it." Suzumiya Musashi, "Go on." "Alright, Musashi-kun, another sacred place, Mount Myaboku, is much more comprehensive than Raichi Cave in terms of inheriting the immortal arts. Practicing magic on Mount Myaboku will also have certain side effects on the user. The general manifestation is the appearance of toad-like features, the size of which varies according to the magician's talent. However, this trait is temporary, and once the natural ability is consumed, the magician will return to normal." Suzumiya Musashi, "And what about the Wet-Bone Forest?" the slug continued with a hint of pride. "The immortal arts of the Wet-Bone Forest are more complete than those of the other two sacred sites. Once the mage masters the technique, not only will their power far surpass that of the other two sacred sites, but they will also be free of the side effects of the techniques cast by those sites. Not a slug, not a stone. The legacy of the immortal arts of the other two sacred sites is utterly incomparable." Suzumiya Musashi was very excited at first. But upon hearing this, he realized something was amiss. If the magic of the Wet-Bone Forest is so good, why haven't we heard of others successfully practicing it? Could it be that Shigalin looks down on these ninjas? But then he shook his head and said, "It shouldn't be like that. Magic more powerful than that of Mount Myaboku. Even geniuses from the 5 great ninja villages will rack their brains trying to find a way to obtain it." He looked at the slug and asked hesitantly, "Aside from the advantages you mentioned, does the magic of the Dampbone Forest have no disadvantages?" The slug's antennae bristled. The small chrysanthemum on its head tensed, and it stammered, "Well, actually, there are a few minor drawbacks." The excitement in Suzumiya Musashi's eyes cooled, and he asked expressionlessly, "Minor drawbacks? Practitioners, also, it hurts a little." "Suzumiya Musashi, can you tell me more about this?" The slug knew it couldn't hide it, so it sighed softly and said, "That's right. Although the magic of the Wet-Bone Forest is far more complete than that of the other two sacred places, in recent years only Hoshirama Senjo has mastered it. The reason lies in 2 major difficulties. First, it requires a high level of talent from the practitioner. This requirement isn't just about ninjutsu proficiency. It's not just about the age required to condense chakra and unleash ninjutsu on a large scale, but about comprehensive qualifications. The practitioner's physical condition, aptitude, perseverance, character, and even desires will affect the practice of immortal arts. Only ninjas with pure and sincere hearts have any hope of success." Suzumiya Musashi listened to the slug's explanation and felt relieved. Considering his physical condition, persistence, and other factors, he still had high hopes. However, if we only considered his aptitude for ninjutsu training, he was in danger. After all, he knew that compared to geniuses like Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke, he was still too ordinary. The second difficulty is the pain. When practicing magic in the Forest of Damp Bones, every cell in the practitioner's body is eroded by natural forces, causing extreme pain. This kind of pain is difficult for humans to endure. In other words, it's unbearable for any living creature of flesh and blood. Ninjas with little training are unaware of the magical heritage of the Dampbone Forest. Those who are aware know they cannot endure the pain of the Dampbone Forest's magic. He said innocently, I don't know either." At that time, he was in so much pain that his mind was clouded. He muttered things like, "Let's end the war, damn it, day and night," and then he simply closed his eyes and endured it. Suzumiya Musashi, Chapter 221 The beginning of the practice of the immortal art. The slug said weakly, "So, you still want to practice the magic of the wet-boned forest? Build, why not fix it?" Suzumiya Musashi said without hesitation. He nodded. "Then let's begin." Suddenly, Musashi felt a little afraid. "Begin? Here? Well, don't we need to make some preparations?" "Yes, but it's not that big of a deal." At the slug's request, Musashi found a huge rock on a secluded island and dug a hole in it for himself. At the slug's request, he expanded a large amount of chakra and summoned a 10-meter-tall slug. Uzumaki Karin, Tenten, and the others stopped what they were doing and gathered to watch Musashi's excitement. "Musashi-kun, are you ready?" Feeling that his chakra had practically recovered and that he was in perfect condition, Musashi said that he was ready. Upon hearing this, the 10-meter-tall slug crawled forward, and as its enormous body rolled over the stone pit dug by Suzumiya Musashi, it was immediately coated with a sticky substance. Lines and inscriptions were etched into it, emitting a faint glow. Then, before the eyes of several people, the slug lowered its massive head slightly. "Musashi-kun, I'm coming." Pffffffffffffffff. Jets of white slime erupted from the slug and landed inside the stone pit. The pit, which was 2 cubic meters in size, was filled with the slug's white mucus. Uzumaki Karin and the other two made pointless sounds of disgust. "What are you talking about? Have you finished your training mission? You have time to sit here and watch the fun. Why don't you go practice?" Suzumiya Musashi heard the voice, turned around, and said glumly. Shianchin stuck out his tongue and turned away. Uzumaki Karin still wanted to stay, but seeing Suzumiya Musashi's stern expression, she had to leave with a touch of regret. After the three men left, Suzumiya Musashi turned to the slug. "All right, what do you want me to do now?" The slug said. "Musashi-kun, I need you to lie down here now. You don't need to do anything, just lie there." Suzumiya Musashi looked at the pool of white liquid and said sensibly, "Does it hurt?" The slug nodded silently. Then he added, "But there's good news, you don't have to worry about anything else, just stay still. The energy will nourish your body naturally, it won't cause you any harm. Don't worry, it's fine even if you open your eyes." Suzumiya Musashi took a deep breath. He wanted to ask the slug how long he would have to stay there, but then he thought it was unnecessary to ask. It was irrelevant. Staring at the white liquid in the stone well in front of him, he swallowed hard and was about to jump in. "Wait," the slug said suddenly, startling Suzumiya Musashi. "What happened?" The slug said. "Musashi-kun, if you go down there, don't wear clothes, it will affect your energy absorption." Hearing this, Suzumiya Musashi took off his green tights without hesitation. "Musashi-kun, tight clothing will restrict your body and affect your perception and absorption of natural abilities. So, if you want to learn magic arts, don't wear such clothes in the future." Suzumiya Musashi frowned. Tights would affect his magic arts practice? It seemed logical. He said, "Really?" The slug's two tentacles unconsciously glanced to the side and then said, "Yes." With a plop, the naked Suzumiya Musashi leaped into the stone well. The white liquid enveloped him in the blink of an eye, and instantly, a wondrous sensation washed over him. The next second, the sensation finally reached his brain through his nervous system, unable to react in time. That sensation is called unheard of pain. Heart-rending screams echoed across the isolated island, and seabirds fled in terror. A minute later, Uzumaki Karin arrived swiftly, her figure sliced through the air, leaving a trail of smoke and dust in her wake. "What's wrong, brother? Are you alright?" "Don't scare me, master, Musashi-senpai." By the time several people arrived at Suzumiya Musashi's house, one after another, the screams had subsided. Looking at the terrified people, the slug said softly, "Karin, Tenten, don't worry, it's fine." Uzumaki Karin and the others stared at Suzumiya Musashi in the stone pit, gritting their teeth, their skin flushed, and even showing some signs of rolling their eyes, and said incredulously, "You call this nothing happened?" "Yes," the slug explained. "It only hurts a little, just a little. Don't worry, there are no side effects, he'll heal soon." "Really?" the slug said. "Trust me, it'll be quick." After receiving the slug's reassurance, the few people were certain that Suzumiya Musashi wouldn't die for the time being, and then they were left with doubt. The slug was Tsunade's summoning beast, so it was quite credible. If it said it was quick, it must be really quick. They hadn't realized. Humans and immortal species from the three sacred places had different perceptions of time. For slugs, Months or even years passed in the blink of an eye. Indeed, it was very quick. But for ordinary people, they endure tremendous pain and suffering, but many times, it ended in the blink of an eye. Suzumiya Musashi heard the concerns of Uzumaki Karin and the others, but he didn't react. Because at that moment, he no longer cared about explaining to the other party that he was fine. In fact, he wasn't sure if he was fine. Nobody knew what. There was a white liquid in the stone well. Upon entering, Suzumiya Musashi sensed a strange energy in the liquid. Unlike the 5 attributes, wind, fire, earth, wood, and thunder, this energy was more natural and stable. The energy was evenly distributed throughout the liquid. As he entered, the energy began to neutralize naturally, penetrating and dissolving through his skin little by little. He gritted his teeth and pursed his lips. He was afraid of screaming if he wasn't careful. Simply because he was afraid of looking bad. The grown man cried out in pain. If Uzumaki Karin, Tenten, and the others were watching, could he salvage his dignity? Meanwhile, the slug by his ear distracted him from the pain. Musashi-kun, this is the first step in practicing the immortal art of the wet bone forest. I have evenly injected a specific proportion of natural energy into the mucus. After my special modification, this energy will not petrify you, but will spontaneously penetrate and erode your body. Wanting to assimilate your body to the familiar substance of natural energy, but don't worry. Although the corrosive power of natural energy is very strong, it won't harm your body, because in mucus there are also substances and chakras with restorative properties. While you endure the erosion of natural energy, your body will be restored to its best state at any time. Even with the blessing of this restorative energy, your perception will be sharper than usual. Isn't that great? The green mesh will be removed and soon there will be a new skin. Chapter 222. It's going to collapse. Is this okay? Hey, dude, Suzumiya Musashi struggled to keep from swearing out loud. This feeling can't be understood unless you've experienced it. The invasion of transformed natural energy is already extremely painful. If you add the slug's healing power to that, the effect is even more acidic and refreshing. How to describe that feeling? After curing my hemorrhoids, I'm going to eat spicy food. After drinking coffee, I'm going to get a tooth extracted. Eyes wide. Highlighting a detail of the experience that cannot be overlooked. Slug, how long will this stage last? Suzumiya Musashi noticed that his character still lacks strength and couldn't help but ask. The slug's voice remained soft. The time cannot be determined, about 2 months, or half a year. Suzumiya Musashi closed his eyes. On one hand, it was because the pain in his body was too intense. On the other hand, he didn't want to talk anymore. In half a year, I'll collapse. Musashi-kun, you must stay awake. The assimilation of natural energy only works when the practitioner is awake. Suzumiya Musashi reluctantly asked, what if I faint? The slug replied, if you faint, the natural energy will erode your body on a large scale. But it doesn't matter. I'll swallow you with my mouth and absorb and decompose the natural energy. Of course, this assumes you're willing to continue practicing. If you can't endure it halfway through, you can choose to abandon the practice of the celestial arts. After all, for so many years, with the exception of Master Hashirama, no one else has managed it. Suzumiya Musashi frowned. The fact that Hashirama Senju was able to endure proves that this kind of pain is not something the human body can withstand. How can we let his predecessors take all the credit? Besides, the purpose of his cultivation wasn't to compete with others. Even if no one had ever succeeded with the magic of the wet bone forest, he would still try. For him, every path to becoming stronger was valuable. Whether painful or training-based, how could he know the outcome if he didn't try? The pain of thousands of needles piercing his bones never ceased. Suzumiya Musashi gritted his teeth and endured it. Natural energy was his most promising way to grow stronger after the 8 gates and the Yin seal. Who could break free from the bonds of the sacred tree and chakra, and whether he could match the Otsutsuki in the power sequence, all depended on natural energy. For this, he was prepared to give his all. The only hope was that he could endure without fainting. Observing the enormous slug's body not far away and the chrysanthemum on its head, a flash of fear shone in his eyes. Spirit, hold on tight. The passage of time seemed to become sticky at this moment. Every minute and every second seemed longer than before. Suzumiya Musashi was fighting. Fighting against the pain emanating from his body. Fighting against his gradually weakening spirit. Little by little, as the natural energy of the white liquid continued to erode, Suzumiya Musashi's body was getting closer and closer to its limit. Clap. 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 Inside the stone pit, he began to move his arms and legs, patting his hands. Although the pain intensified slightly, he wanted to stay awake. Musashi-kun, you did a great job. Hold on. After an hour. I'm holding on. Half an hour later. I'm holding on. 10 minutes later. I'm holding on. Suzumiya Musashi maintained his stance and closed his eyes. The scene before me finally vanished completely. I couldn't tell if he had fainted or was holding on. He was absorbed by an inexplicable suction force, and his body regained its vitality. That night, Uzumaki Karen hunted some new prey, and they sat around the campfire enjoying dinner. Suzumiya Musashi said nothing. Noticing that something was wrong, Uzumaki Karen put down her food and approached him. What happened? Are you having trouble with your training? Suzumiya Musashi shook his head and said nothing. Is the ninjutsu research not going well? Suzumiya Musashi remained silent. But the more he acted like this, the more worried Uzumaki Karen became. Brother, what happened to you? If we encounter difficulties in our any cultivation challenge we can't overcome, we should simply overcome. There's no need to dwell on it. I'm worried about you, Suzumiya Musashi finally said. Don't worry, Karen, really, of course it's true. Don't you understand? No setback can defeat me, and you? How's your practice of the river flow seal I taught you going? Speaking of this, Uzumaki Karen suddenly felt proud. Are you underestimating me? How can a simple sealing technique defeat me? I figured out the trick. Give me a little more time and I'll be able to master it completely. Good. After saying this, Suzumiya Musashi became concerned about Shianshin's training progress. He was relieved to know that the other's progress was relatively steady. Alright, keep going. After a while, if you don't neglect your practice, I'll teach you a new technique. A new technique. Speaking of this, Shianshin immediately became excited. Master, what are you going to teach me? It's alright to tell you, it's supernatural power. Shianshin was stunned for a moment. Hearing that familiar name, she thought of the information about this technique. The next instant, Shianshin suddenly stood up, her large eyes filled with excitement and surprise. Against the backdrop of the bonfire, they resembled a pair of titanium alloy gems, like two small, glowing flames. Master, are you serious? Chapter 223 Immortal Art Practice Suspended, Everyday Air Force. It's no wonder Shianshin is so emotional. What kind of ninjutsu is this super strength jutsu? Some believe it's one of the most violent physical ninjutsu in the ninja world. Others believe this technique is not only powerful but also mana-saving. Some think this ninjutsu is impressive. But this isn't something you see every day. That's not what matters to her. The person who casts it. Everyone in the ninja world knows Tsunade-sama, one of the three shinobi world ninja and the greatest and most powerful woman in the ninja world. Among her most well-known methods is the use of supernatural powers. And now, she'd actually learned that she'd also had the opportunity to practice Lady Tsunade's ninjutsu. Dreams come true? Master Shianshin's eyes were teary and misty, and she was very moved. Come on, Suzumiya Musashi patted her head. If you want to be a ninja like Tsunade, you must keep your word. Tenten hadn't managed to master the Flying Thunder God technique, and Suzumiya Musashi no longer believed in her chances of success. So, in addition to the Rasengan and summoning beasts, he needed to refine his young apprentice's skills. From now on, the summon ninja beasts would attack the enemy, and the super strength techniques and the Rasengan would be used to defend against close-range attacks. This way, he would feel more at ease. That night, Shianshin was so excited that he couldn't fall back asleep. He tossed and turned for a long time before drifting off. Even in his sleep, the corners of his lips curled. Supernatural powers, supernatural powers. He, Suzumiya Musashi, was carrying out the first stage of his training in the fairy arts in an orderly fashion. Every day, without the slug reminding him, he consciously jumped into the stone well and allowed himself to be influenced by the natural energy. The physical and mental torture was endless, and it depended on his perseverance to try to endure longer and longer. Persist, persist, persist. Endure. This was to improve the progress of his physical practice and also to avoid being swallowed by the slug as much as possible. Don't ask why, I simply don't want to. As he continued his practice, he was able to persist longer and longer. From the very first hours, he gradually became more persistent. At the same time, his mental state gradually changed. His eyes began to grow less alive than before. To put it in the slug's words, This was the fatigue and numbness caused by the mental torture. Musashi wanted to explain himself, but little by little he felt less motivated. Thus, after remaining on the isolated island for a month, the slug stopped the first stage of the immortal arts practice. Slug, what's wrong? Suzumiya Musashi asked. What went wrong? Nothing, Musashi-kun, your training is going well, then why stop? I can almost last a whole day. Your current mental state needs adjusting. If you continue like this, your willpower won't hold, and your spirit will break. The spirit, like the body, has its limits. Suzumiya Musashi frowned. The slug said, don't worry, Musashi-kun. The training during this period has been very effective, so it's fine to take a break. Once you've regained some energy, you can continue your practice. Do we need a break? It shouldn't take too long, but it depends on your mental recovery. It could be as short as a dozen days or as long as a month. Only after hearing the slug's explanation did Suzumiya Musashi feel relieved. There's no problem as long as you can continue your practice. This month seemed like an eternity to him, and it would be good to change the pace of his practice. But before finishing, he asked, how long did Senju Hashirama's first stage last? The slug replied, Hashirama-sama took approximately 1 month. 1 month, Suzumiya Musashi whispered to himself. Slug, Musashi-kun, don't be discouraged. In fact, your willpower is no less than Hashirama-sama's. Slug, thank you for your time. You're very kind, Musashi-kun. The first stage of fairy art training was suspended. Suzumiya Musashi forced himself to cheer up, called Uzumaki Karin and the others, and announced that he would be leaving the island and setting sail again. Master, are you alright? At sea, Tenten crouched down in front of Suzumiya Musashi and asked him anxiously. When they reached the island, they discovered that something was wrong with Suzumiya Musashi. Unexpectedly, after setting sail, his condition hadn't improved much. Although his daily physical training continued as normal, he seemed listless and lacking in energy. Did the practice damage your brain? Shianshin asked. Suzumiya Musashi rolled his eyes and said, if you can't speak, if you don't speak, then don't practice it. The 8 Gates ninjutsu is good too. Get plenty of rest and don't overexert yourself. Okay, don't worry about me. Suzumiya Musashi said, I know what's wrong. He'll be fine in 2 days. Bai said nothing, but silently poured a bowl of fish soup and handed it to Suzumiya Musashi. Drink more, it's very nutritious, thank you. After suspending his magical arts practice, Suzumiya Musashi even stopped researching ninjutsu, putting aside everything that consumed his mind. Every day I do the same physical training, with his practice routine and nothing to distract him, his mental state gradually improved. Seeing his changes, Uzumaki Karin and the others finally felt relieved. That day, after completing their training, Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin sat in a boat and went fishing together. It was pure luck, but Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin managed to reel in their lines time and time again, and even the usually easygoing Bai caught a few strange sea fish. Only Shianshin remained unscathed after half a day. Phew. Here it comes. Another fish is on the hook, as Uzumaki Karin shouted excitedly. Tenten pouted, growing increasingly annoyed. I disagree, there must be something wrong with my fishing rod, or maybe my bait's expired, Bai whispered. Shianshin, the bait I just gave you isn't expired, Shianshin said, that's because my position isn't good, the wind here is a bit strong, which affected my performance. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Shianshin, I should have prepared a giant pole. Uzumaki Karin happily put away her club, saying, Shianshin, stop being so stubborn, admit it, you fish just like me, HMPH. They're just a few small fish, why are you so proud? Shianshin said angrily, just you wait, I'm sure I'll catch one today, bigger than any of yours. Uzumaki Karin didn't take it seriously. She knew she'd taken the bait. Ha ha ha. Brother, look at Shianshin, she's a cripple, Karin, scolded Suzumiya Musashi, don't laugh at the Air Force, Uzumaki Karin, Air Force? What do you mean, D? Shianshin pursed his lips, said nothing, and stared at the fishing rod in his hand. Unfortunately, no matter how much he prayed in his heart, after several hours, the rod remained in his hand like a eunuch in bed, motionless. Shianshin, if you can't, can you help by boil water? Don't worry, with our relationship, if I catch a fish, you'll have something to eat. I won't, Shianshin stubbornly insisted. I have to eat the fish I catch today. Even Suzumiya Musashi couldn't help but advise, Tenten, don't take it so seriously, it's hard to say about things like fishing. His expression changed every day. He trembled. She chuckled and said, Shianshin, if you can't catch it, you can't catch it. There's no point in lying to yourself. Perhaps it's because you're not suited to fishing from a boat. Didn't my brother say you should go fishing on an island? What a shame. I mean it. Tenten suddenly stood up. Karin, master, it seems there's a really big fish. Seeing that Tenten's expression didn't seem fake, Suzumiya Musashi and Uzumaki Karin also looked at Tenten's fishing rod. However, the other person's fishing rod wasn't shaking as if the fish was struggling, and the line hanging in the water was also straight. As they pondered this, they suddenly realized that something was wrong. Although Shianshin's line was still straight, it wasn't perpendicular to the surface of the sea, but rather it was constantly tilting forward over time. She spread her legs and climbed onto the deck with more vigor. Feeling the strength in her hand, Shianshin, who was in this situation for the first time, was shocked and panicked. Master, Suzumiya Musashi instantly stepped forward and grabbed Tenten's fishing rod. As soon as she started, she realized something was wrong. The force emanating from the fishing rod was very strong. Shianshin, hold on. It's a big fish. The fishing rod keeps falling. Her eyes grew larger every day. You know, she's a ninja. Even if her power isn't as strong as Suzumiya Musashi's and Uzumaki Karin's, she's still a ninja. She originally joined the third team as a taijutsu specialist. But now I can't even control the fishing rod. It must be a really big fish. Haha. Karin, I made you laugh. This time it's yours. Suzumiya Musashi helped Tenten hold the fishing rod with one hand to prevent her from accidentally dropping it. Seeing that Shianshin still couldn't lift it, she said, Shianshin, let go of me and let me do it. Shianshin slowly released her hand as instructed. Suzumiya Musashi took over from Tenten, applying a little more force. I can't lift it. Not only can't it be lifted, it's barely moving. Even if it was a big fish, it should fight back. Shouldn't it? He didn't dare use too much force for fear of breaking the special fishing line. Shianshin watched the scene from the side and couldn't help but regret it. He said the reason he couldn't catch anything was the equipment. If he had known beforehand that equipment is the most important thing when fishing, he would have prepared a giant fishing rod. Uzumaki Karin also rushed over. Seeing that Suzumiya Musashi couldn't lift the rod, she slowly used Kagura's mental eye to perceive the underwater situation. A few seconds later, Uzumaki Karin's eyes widened. So big all of a sudden? Suzumiya Musashi asked. Karin, what's wrong? Uzumaki Karin raised her head, her eyes full of astonishment. What a big fish, Shianshin, how big is it? Uzumaki Karin, bigger than our ship, Shianshin, Just as he was wondering if Uzumaki Karin had been mistaken, Suzumiya Musashi suddenly stood up. Chakra surged beneath his feet, pulling his body toward the deck. His hands didn't move at all, but the fishing rod bent into an exaggerated arc. Then, the taut line suddenly changed from its original vertical position to a sudden forward tilt. Under this force, the ship slowly changed direction. Something seems to be wrong. As Suzumiya Musashi finished speaking, the color of the water in front of him gradually darkened. In a few seconds, the surface of the water, originally blue, suddenly turned black. Look closely, it's not the surface of the water that has turned black, but clearly a large shadow. Then, the shadow became more and more apparent, and soon, the silhouette of a huge monster gradually emerged. Crash! Water splashed into the sky. A swordfish, a giant, tens of meters long and much larger than the ship, suddenly emerged. Finally, some of them figured out why Shianshin's fishing line wasn't moving. Compared to the giant swordfish in front of him, the ship seemed a bit small, and the line in Shianshin's hand was probably no different from a tangled piece of aquatic grass. The swordfish surfaced and continued moving forward. The line in Suzumiya Musashi's hand stretched straight out, emitting a snap. Bang! The fishing line suddenly snapped. The ship. Its silvery white body and dark blue back. On the enormous body, tens of meters long, the dorsal fin alone was more than 10 meters high, like a giant sword reaching towards the sky, majestic and imposing. Uzumaki Karin, it's so big. Suzumiya Musashi, wo museo, Shianshin, my fish. At that moment, Xianshan wasn't thinking about the terrifying power of his opponent, but in the fact that she had finally caught a fish bigger than Uzumaki Karin, but it got away just like that. After the giant swordfish leaped out of the water, its enormous eyes glared at the few people present, as if mocking their arrogance. The massive body traced a long arc across the sky and then crashed into the sea. The huge tail moved smoothly toward the boat, intentionally or not. Boom, the sea roared and filled with water. The enormous waves made the boat go up and down continuously. Seeing this, Uzumaki Karin immediately flew into a rage. Damn it, this fish is laughing at us. Seawater covered Xianshan's head, soaking him to the bone, but he felt much more serene. Forget it, Karin, don't get angry, this fish is too big, let's move away from it. Instead, he worried about himself and others. But the more this happened, the angrier he became. Don't be afraid, Xianshan, it's just a fish, and yet you dare to laugh at us. I have to teach it a lesson today. With Suzumiya Musashi present, Uzumaki Karin felt very confident and wasn't afraid of a fish at all. As he spoke, the chakra in his body shut out. And then two golden chains emerged from him and shot straight toward the giant swordfish that was showing off its pride. I'm still trying to run. The golden chain was extremely fast and strengthened against the wind. In the blink of an eye, they traveled dozens of meters and appeared above the fish sword. The two chains were half a meter thick. Chapter 225, Seeing the Giant Again. Although it still looked a bit thin compared to the swordfish's enormous body, it was enough to ensnare the opponent. The diamond seal was the Uzumaki clan's signature sealing technique, and its capabilities extended far beyond simple sealing. Whether a physical attack or a ninjutsu attack, the diamond block could effectively counter them. At that moment, the golden chain had just wrapped around the giant swordfish's dorsal fin, and it suddenly realized something was wrong. The thin golden line of the dorsal fin caused a very uncomfortable sensation as it touched its body. Instinct seemed to tell it, the further away from that thing, the better. Boom. The swordfish's enormous body ripped through the water and plunged into the sea, its long tail pushing through the waves as it went. Crash. Uzumaki Karin said angrily, you want to run? It's not that easy. On the other hand, Suzumiya Musashi had no intention of stopping the rivalry between Uzumaki Karin and the swordfish. For him, the swordfish was a bit too large, but it posed no threat. Uzumaki Karin was willing to give the other a break, and he was glad to see it happen, as it not only allowed him to relax his mind but also test the results of his training. Judging by his performance, the effect was very good. With the physical strength of the Uzumaki clan, the power of the diamond seal alone was no less than that of Suzumiya Musashi. In the waves, Uzumaki Karin exerted himself to the fullest to control the chain and the boat. Although the swordfish couldn't break free for a while, Suzumiya Musashi knew that it would eventually lose. He would let the giant swordfish, which relied on the diamond seal and the swordfish to resist, wait until the chakra was depleted, and then, thanks to his powerful physical strength, it would have the upper hand. In the water, Suzumiya Musashi watched the swordfish leap forward, and it looked familiar. If he remembered correctly, it was very similar to the swordfish Uzumaki Naruto had encountered when he traveled north. Only the location was quite different, so he couldn't be certain. Just as he was distracted, the swordfish in front of him let out a long hiss. As it drew closer, it suddenly changed direction, and its forward-moving body plunged toward the seabed. The sudden, violent force startled Uzumaki Karin. He gripped the golden chain tightly and exerted his chakra to the fullest, trying to control the swordfish so it wouldn't escape. The swordfish seemed to be berserk, and even though the King Kong sea lock was deeply embedded in its dorsal fin, it was determined to sink into the sea at all costs. Scream, he exclaimed with a sharp cry. The next instant, a large shadow fell from the sky and plummeted into the water before the terrified eyes of Suzumiya Musashi and the others. Boom, the water and air exclaimed. Under the influence of the enormous pulling force, the ship suddenly tilted forward. Uzumaki Karin could no longer control the diamond chains. The still rippling surface of the sea suddenly parted, and a colossal figure rose up. It was an enormous bird. With its wings outstretched, it measured 30 meters. It was covered in brown feathers, and on its head was a massive 10-meter-long beak, nearly half the length of its body. Beneath the enormous bird, its talons were like massive steel hooks, now stained with blood, and a broken dorsal fin clutched tightly in its hand. The big fish died, she exclaimed in disbelief. It was hard to imagine that. I marveled at the size of the swordfish, but in the blink of an eye, it was defeated by a bird of the same size. Probably not. Uzumaki Karin had the sharpest perception of those present. The breath of life hasn't left it, it should only be injured. That's amazing too, Shianshin exclaimed as he watched the giant bird soar into the sky. When the swordfish appeared, she was still wondering what would happen if she made it her summoned beast. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, a monster stronger than the swordfish appeared. A giant bird, stronger, larger, and capable of flight, was obviously more suitable as a summoned beast than the swordfish. Unconsciously, she glanced at Suzumiya Musashi, but she didn't expect him to be looking at her as well. When their eyes met, Shianshin knew that the master was treating her the same way, and he was thinking the same thing. So, he hurriedly said, "Master, forget it if it doesn't work, safety is important." Suzumiya Musashi turned his head and looked at the strange bird in the sky. When the swordfish appeared, he had thought about capturing it and using it as Shianshin's summoned beast, but he immediately dismissed the idea. Although the swordfish was enormous, it had no value beyond its physical advantages. Furthermore, swordfish have relatively high combat requirements and can only operate in large bodies of water, which is unsuitable for Shianshin. The strange bird before him was different. Back in the land of Earth, when he faced the geomagnetic demon swamp, he knew the value of a flying ninja beast, and the strange bird before him was perfect. But there were reasons to worry every day. He raised the enormous, broken fin in his hand, and the next instant, its massive beak opened and closed. As blood rained down, the broken fin was swallowed by the monstrous bird. Immediately afterward, the strange bird didn't leave, but instead glanced at the ship where Suzumiya Musashi and the others were, and an almost human cruelty flashed in its eyes. Huh? The enormous wings unleashed a violent storm, which hissed and shook the ship relentlessly. Shianshin and the others screamed and scrambled to steady themselves. Then, under the solemn gaze of several people, the giant bird arced through the air and swooped down toward them. "Damn it! This thing is trying to eat us," Uzumaki Karin exclaimed angrily. "Watch out, everyone," Suzumiya Musashi warned. He watched the strange bird drawing ever closer, and a flicker of anger flashed in his eyes. At first, he wanted to let it go. Since the other party had taken the initiative to cause them trouble, he certainly wouldn't be afraid. Fire release, dragon flame song technique. The hand seals on both hands almost became an afterimage, and in the blink of an eye, Suzumiya Musashi completed the seals, and a huge dragon's head formed of flames appeared out of nowhere and shot up into the sky. Scream! Seeing the blazing flames, the strange bird didn't dare to let its guard down. It was covered in fur, and if it was hit by this fire ladder, it would definitely be in trouble. The enormous beak opened and closed again, and the piercing scream brought with it a violent sound wave. In an instant, the dragon's head formed by the fire ladder technique showed signs of disintegration. This was not the end yet. Just as the sound waves shook the fire ladder and Suzumiya Musashi and the others covered their ears in pain, a strange bird appeared out of nowhere and suddenly flapped its enormous wings. A hurricane roared. The fire dragon plummeted into the air, becoming flames that flooded the sky and rolled toward the ship. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.